Welcome back. How is everybody? I think we got Phil Heimlich with us now. There he is. There it is. Got the full schedule here. Just waiting for Raven Mundy. She says she'll be a little bit later, but we've got space for her. Got the regular crew, and the crew is growing every single day. We got Alandes Powell with us today. How you doing, Alandes? And she says she's retired, and that means that she curses when she get ready to, but she has a little sticky note for us, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. We got the elephant in the room. I love that. Tarris Horton, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Glad to be here. Glad to see the full crew.
And I just want to make a comment.
And you know, you can't. It never fails. Phil came right in time.
I want to make a commitment to you, Tarris, today. I am committing not to interrupt you during this show.
You already see how this is starting off, right? I love it.
Well,
I feel good to see you, man.
I am innocent. I am an innocent man. Okay?
You're innocent until you prove yourself just doing what you say you're not going to do.
Well, all right. Time will tell.
Well, let's introduce Phil, the interrupter-in-chief Heimlich. How you doing, Phil?
Good, and good to see my former prosecutor. That's easy for me to say. Prosecutor colleague Steve here. It's good to see you, man.
Oh, you guys are friends? I don't like that. I want you on the island all by yourself.
I mean, we haven't worked together much, but I know about Steve.
Okay, that's a little bit better. I don't want no friends of Phil Heimlich on this show saving you at all.
Well, you don't have to worry about that based on a lot of the comments that are made. You don't have to worry about that at all.
Good. And the voice of reason, Kevin Aldridge, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Good to see everybody. And Phil is the great interrupter or the interrupter in chief. It both apply. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
I keep it moving, guys. I keep it moving. If I didn't interrupt, you guys would go on your 45-minute soliloquies. Okay, well, this show would go for 5 hours. So you ought to be grateful to me for that.
Oh, we should be grateful. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know what? That's probably the most accurate thing Phil has probably ever said on this show. I probably have to do. I got to sustain. That was a good case you made right there, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I do not back up that motion at all.
I don't either. I just
we got a new face with us, but hopefully he'll become a regular face. Steve Goodin, how you doing, Steve?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Doing well. And for folks who don't know you, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, if we're not cursing, it's hard for me to talk to myself about myself without cursing right now, given the recent election results. But no, I'm an attorney here in town. I formerly served on city council with a law firm called Porter Wright and Morris. Do a lot of municipal related or litigation. Very involved in the nonprofit world as well. Serve on a lot of different boards. Used to be on the Metro board. Running our Metro bus system, and a number of other endeavors like that. So still very, very involved with local community councils and a lot of different local issues. I'm also the convener, which is our way of saying president of the Charter Party, which fielded a pretty tough slate of candidates this year. It didn't work out. Wasn't our year, but we really do feel like we changed the conversation a lot this year. So frequent contributor to the Inquirer, and I'm also on WLW and WKRC quite a bit as one of their legal commentators. So I've been doing that for several years. So honored to be here. Thank you.
And full disclosure, you were a legal commentator for the Nathan Ivey show back during that PG Sittenfield trial. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I watched almost all of that trial. That was a fascinating thing. And I think that's still very much with us in a lot of ways. That very much hangs over City Hall and has sort of crossed over into sort of the larger national conversation, I guess, now with this pardon. So that's a fascinating.
Hey, Steve, am I confused, or weren't you doing a stint in the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office, or am I confused?
No, sir. Well, I sure did.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think I even had your old office at one point. They told me it was haunted.
Yeah.
No, I was there from. I was there from 2000 to, yes, I was in the felony division for most of my time there. But yeah, I was there from 2000 to 2005. That was my first real job out of law school.
Okay. Let's say hello to the audience. And not Phil, but Steve, I want to circle back and hopefully we get a chance to talk about what's happening with PG and get your thoughts about it. But Jerome was first. Hello, Jerome. And Dina, good to see you. Nat, good to see you. Good to see everybody. The real Chris Horton. How you doing, the real Chris Horton? And Brenda, good to see you. Vanita, good to see you. Fanon Rucker's in the house, one of our crew members. Good to see you, Fanon. Steban is here. Good to see you, bro, as always. Please take a second to like and share and lift us up and tell people about the podcast today. Let them know we're live. But let's get straight into it. So you said the convener, huh? Let's talk about the Charter Right Party. You ran for election as well. Nobody who ran under the Charter Right flag won. Does the Charter Right Party really have a future here in the city? And why do you think that no one from the Charter Right Party won? And what does that say?
Well,
your opinion.
Well, it says a lot of things, actually. And I think, look, first, we were very proud of the campaign that we ran. We really feel like we did change the conversation, particularly on public safety issues and a lot of the neighborhood issues. I think we really did kind of champion what was going on both in Bond Hill regarding the new development by the Villages of Daybreak and the issue in Hyde Park Square, which we both thought were huge failures of like kind of civic engagement at City Hall. And I think we did push those issues forward. So even though we didn't win, I think we changed a lot of the talk. We really do think that the mayor fired the police chief in direct response to our criticisms about how he was handling things. I don't think that was the right thing to do necessarily. I don't know that it is going to lead to the systemic change that's needed, but at least, I think we did drive the conversation all summer. But why we lost, I can tell you, we've spent a lot of time with our analysts and our political people, and it really was a combination of two things. One, turnout. You have about 30% turnout in the city, which I know is average to above average, but still it's not a really representative sample of who of the city as a whole. And number two, this whole phenomenon of even the most tiny local elections being governed by national issues. And what the Democratic Party did a very good job of is painting anybody who questioned the kind of Democratic status quo as being MAGA or MAGA sympathizers. That's all they did. That's all they did on the stump. That's all they did in their direct mail. And I think it was effective to that small group of kind of motivated partisan people who showed up. And I can tell you, on our slate, we have folks like Lakita Cole, Don Driehaus, Aaron Weiner, Don Johnson, all of whom I think regard themselves as being aligned with the Democratic Party on larger national issues, but all of whom had big problems with how the city was being run, practically speaking and locally speaking. So it was just a year where, you saw it out in the townships, you saw it in school board races, even in the townships. There was a blue wave. It was like a mini midterm election, and we really just weren't able to break past that. We do think the Charter Party continues to have a future here. It's been around for 100. We're in our 101st year of kind of pushing, solely civic local issues. We do not take positions on national issues. And that was definitely to our detriment this year. It has always been a group of folks who are working across party lines to advance solely local things. That is just simply not the flavor that we're seeing, particularly from younger voters right now. But we do predict that there will be a time when that changes. So I don't think we have no plans of going away. We do have plans of staying engaged. And maybe actually looking at additional structural reforms and so forth. But look, a couple of our candidates ran pretty well, particularly Lakita ran really well, but it just wasn't a year where people were going to be open to non-national, where the national issues just dominated even at City Hall.
Steve, there are some folks who felt like the charter committee was also maybe the candidates were maybe also on the wrong side of some of these development and growth issues.
Yep.
I know you yourself sort of took the side of sort of the residents there in Hyde Park on that debate. And there are a lot of people who feel like, in addition to some of the things that you mentioned, that also didn't play in the charter committee's favor in terms of where they stand on growth and development in the city. How do you address that?
Well, I think that is one of the more unfortunate things, because I think there were a lot of bad faith folks on both sides of that debate. Our point of view on Hyde Park, it was the same thing that we were, and it wasn't just Hyde Park Square. I mean, Hyde Park Square was the development issue that got the most attention, I guess, because of the press, and also because of the fact that they were very organized and did a petition drive and really got City Hall to back down. So, I mean, first, if we were so wrong, why did the city ultimately repeal the ordinance? I mean, those folks made their case. But we also hear the same thing in Bond Hill with the new proposed public housing development, which is going to be outside of the Villages of Daybreak. And we hear the same arguments over in East and West Price Hill over a variety of developments there. And we also hear the same arguments about this connected communities legislation, which is we need to grow, we need more housing. Everybody acknowledges that, but there's got to be some way to better balance the impact the new housing is going to have on our single family homeowners. And I don't think that's like being anti-growth. It's not being NIMBY. I mean, again, these were the talking points that were being pushed, that were anti-affordable housing. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we have to do, though, is realize that for 2 or 3 generations, we've been telling people in every community, black, white, wherever, that home ownership is your path to creating generational wealth that you can pass down. It's a key part of what you're supposed to be doing. And when you basically disregard that, the impact that new development will have on single family home ownership, that's not a good place to be. And I think those folks, the folks at City Hall, did a very good job of trying to paint our position as being sort of NIMBY or what have you, but it was not. Is something that we're hearing across the city. I don't think that issue is anywhere close to being resolved. And I think once the impact of the so-called pro-growth, and I call them so-called because they're really not pro-growth, they're reckless growth policies are being felt over the next couple of years, I think a lot of people are going to be revisiting, how they feel about this. So, I get the criticism. We considered that, but we really don't think the balance is correct in the policies that are being put out there in terms of how they impact single family home ownership. And we want housing, we need housing. There is all kinds of opportunities for new housing in this area. I work with developers a fair amount in my private law practice. I mean, I get it. The real stumbling blocks to development are our tax system and our building and inspections folks and the bureaucracy at City Hall. It's nothing that is going to be resolved the way we're resolving it now.
Anybody from the crew want to jump in? Alandes, Tarris, Phil?
I just say, as far as pro-growth policies and getting more housing, I think Steve is 100% correct. I think what people forget, at least I felt when I was on city council, people I was serving with didn't get the fact that the city of Cincinnati is in competition with all the suburbs around it, all the municipalities. Okay. And people are going to go where quality of life is better, where taxes are lower, okay, where it is you don't, and also builders are going to go where it's easier to build. And if we think of ourselves in the city as in a competitive mode and try to be better at those things, I think that's how you get more housing.
Well, you kind of answered it. Cam Hardy was in the chat. He writes, what did Charter support that was pro-growth?
Oh, well, first, Cam, hi, Cam. He was one of our leading online critics, and also was putting out things that I just think were frankly, incorrect. I mean, we have always proposed, and if you ever, and again, it's very easy to get into the kind of, for lack of a better word, nerdy part of this, but we have always proposed a form-based code. I mean, we think that the city should have adopt a neighborhood by neighborhood zoning code that essentially pre-approves certain kinds of development by neighborhood, and that we think we should rip the Band-Aid off and have true zoning reform. I mean, what the city did was this so-called Connected Communities program that basically says if you want to, that basically takes away any zoning requirements on 4 blocks of either side of one of the new BRT bus lines. And, that is, cuts across huge parts of the city, huge swaths of the city, in neighborhoods, both very affluent and not, and basically says you can build whatever the hell you want there, regardless of its impact on other housing. And we think that was absolutely the wrong way to go. And what we should have been doing is doing a true form-based code, which is what cities that are serious about growth do, where you go neighborhood by neighborhood and figure out what kind of new housing would actually fit in the neighborhood, rather than this is like a meat cleaver approach when you really needed a scalpel and you really needed real community engagement. So, I mean, that is absolutely where we are. And frankly, the charter is always supported. And when I was on council, we fought for growing that affordable housing trust fund, which was something that when I was on council originally, is something that we very much fought to kind of help to bring back. And it has grown under this council. It's one thing that they've done a pretty good job of. So, we've always favored trying to construct new affordable units. And we've always favored a greater and more detailed and more progressive zoning code so that we don't have these ridiculous neighborhood fights. I can just tell you right now, in Hyde Park, the fight was over the height and size of a building and whether or not there were too many apartments. And you go down to Over the Rhine, the battle's always about parking and whether or not there are enough affordable units in there. So every neighborhood seems to have its own beef, and that's the thing I hear from developers is the unpredictability of the neighborhood pushback on these things. So I think we absolutely need to resolve all that. Form-based code has all those arguments at once, and it really puts a city on a much better footing. So we were actually looking at something much more expansive than what is out there right now.
Yeah, Steve, I don't think we heard any of that. Like, I never really understood what the members of the charter was really about. And I think in this election, most people look like either you were Democrat or you were potentially MAGA, and no one was going for it. So even if you talked that, people didn't get deep enough to hear it because we needed you to rise up and say what you weren't before you told us what else you talked about doing. So I really think that's where it fell apart.
Well, Ms. Powell, I'll tell you this, some of it was financial, but we screamed from the mountaintops that we were not MAGA affiliated. None of us were, despite what people like Mr. Hardy said online. None of us were Trump supporters or were part of the MAGA movement or were sympathetic to the MAGA movement. And we put that message out as much as we could, but we frankly did not have the funds to combat that. I mean, there were at least 3 mailers that came to my house, okay, calling me MAGA, basically, to my own house.
What's that like? What was that like to get a mailer to your house calling you
Well,
MAGA?
actually, I was getting 2 of them. They were also sending them to my daughter, who lives with me. So my daughter's of voting age. So we're getting I think we got 6 total. I mean, they call me that by name, but they're referring to everybody. They're saying, MAGA's at the doorstep, what have you. Well, first, I mean, look, I've been around politics, not as a candidate, but I've had many friends involved in politics for many years, so I know that not every argument that's being made is in good faith. I will admit that the problem the charter party has is that sometimes we are not as well funded as a Republican Party, even the Democratic Party. Number one, number two, it's almost all volunteer labor. And number two, we do tend to, we've got all these folks that were working with us this year, like Dwight Tillery was very involved, and Jim Tarbell is still very involved. They tend to assume the best from everybody. And once that messaging started to hit, we knew that we really couldn't, we weren't going to be able to respond to it in a way that was meaningful or made sense. I mean, we really didn't have $100,000 to send messages saying we're not MAGA. And plus, the second you start saying you're not MAGA, like you're accepting the terms of that debate, and it's not going anywhere. So, I mean, I really do. Look, I'm not bitter about it because I know what politics is, and I know you're taking the risk. But it was a smear. The folks saying it knew it wasn't true. I mean, how in the hell is Lakita Cole a MAGA, or Don Driehaus, particularly? I mean, I guess you can smear me as a middle-aged white male more easily on MAGA, even though I'm not. I've been very outspoken, even in my time working with the Republican Party, very outspoken about a lot of the stuff, the Trump policies and so forth that I think are really wrong and particularly bad for cities. I mean, I was outspoken about it on city council. I mean, we were actually on the floor of council on January 6th as it was unfolding. And we talked about what was going on there live on TV. But it didn't matter. That was out there. And Ms. Powell, I agree with you. I wish to God we had the money to get our message out there in a more meaningful way, because I think it fit the city's mood much better than anything that we're seeing right now here. I mean, we were talking about things that I think were very practical, and we just, all in, we had about $70,000. That's not enough to run a campaign like this anymore.
Yeah, I'll add this though, that because people like in your party came out really aggressively about the mayor, then it made you think you were for the other candidate. So whether it was MAGA or Republican, like calming down and talk about him because the alternative didn't work for most of us.
Yeah.
And so I think it wasn't just MAGA. It was, everything everyone was doing. Like sometimes in politics is strategy. And so strategically, people was not calming down on the mayor and that piece of the race. And that just automatically made it look like you were for the other guy. So I do think it was a combination, but I never knew some of the things you talked about because I think housing is important. But I think placement is important too, because I understand what Bond Hill is saying. Like a lot of those people worked hard to get their single housing and they were told certain things wasn't going to happen. And now it appears that it will. So I get it, but I do think housing is one of our big problems in the city.
Yeah.
I 100% agree, Ms. Powell. And you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. I don't want to take the whole thing over here, but in retrospect, I mean, we felt an obligation to. We ended up engaging with the mayor probably more strategically than we should have. The mayor was kind of the face of a lot of the policies that we disagreed with. And nobody we did not endorse Corey Bowman. We think Corey Bowman actually probably was the worst development for us. We knew that going in. He does have a MAGA affiliation, arguably, and that was something that I think opened the door to paint anybody out there as MAGA. But we did not endorse Corey Bowman. We didn't support Corey Bowman. I didn't view him, frankly, as a serious candidate, and none of our folks did. But the fact that we were in a position as critics of City Hall, we were trying to be more critical of City Hall in a way we thought was more thoughtful and a little more honest than just this general MAGA, cities are terrible kind of vibe that they have. We didn't want to run the city down. We wanted to be critical of what was happening, but not anti-Cincinnati, because I think that's where things get really bad. But I hear what you're saying. We engaged with the mayor probably more than we should have, and he engaged with us too. I mean, he shot at me pretty hard personally numerous times as well. So, and that's fine. He lives around the corner from me. I'm not looking for a Christmas card or anything this year, but
it's
Oh, I was just going to ask you, Steve, along those lines. You know, the charter committee has long been regarded sort of as the good government, the stewards of good government party here in Cincinnati. Does that still work in this political climate? Because again, I almost kind of look at you guys as somewhat of kind of like independents. You know,
Right.
in this political environment, if you're not a Democrat or a Republican, you're kind of in no man's land. And it kind of, the charter committee kind of strikes me as that you guys tried to position yourselves somewhat. I don't want to say as necessarily as fence sitters, as sort of like you weren't decisive, but I just mean sort of like that moderate. You know, a lot of people have made this case that there's not much room for moderates in our current political environment and the way things situate, and it would seem like a group that says, hey, we want to be critical of the mayor's policies, but we're also not supporters of Corey Bowman, that doesn't seem to fly in our political environment, even as legitimate as some of the criticisms might be, which I happen to think some of them were.
Well, no, I think you put your finger on the political problem, I think, which is, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think in this environment right now, there is this whole, particularly in our cities, not just in Cincinnati, but in our cities nationwide, it's if you are not anti-Trump or actively anti-Trump, then you must in some way be pro-Trump or encouraging Trump. And the idea of kind of going back to this kind of the charter model, which has always had an audience in Cincinnati, uh, I mean, until very recently, this idea of just kind of putting partisanship aside and focusing on local government issues, kind of what I always call the deeply unsexy work of running a city, you know, fixing the potholes and you know, making sure our police officers are properly paid and staffed, et cetera. I mean, those are the sorts of things that we thought were going to have a moment this year, just based on what we were hearing, particularly at the community council level. But at the end of the day, the people who actually did show up, and again, it's only 30%, you know, were people who were motivated by partisan concerns both ways. We did not do well on among Republican voters either. I mean, ironically, I mean, you know, our study showed that, you know, we thought there were areas like Sailor Park and others where we thought we were going to perform reasonably well. We did not. You know, Republicans stayed away from us too, in certain areas. So, you know, it's just from a political standpoint, you're either for Trump or against Trump, and I think that's going to be in the system here for a while until he finally moves on and is out. But I do think there will come a time where, you know, where that I don't know that I would call us moderate so much as I would call us, you know, nonpartisan, where those kinds of concerns are going to step up again, and you know,
Well, Steve,
we'll have to see.
Steve, I got the sense what you're saying. I'm not really criticizing you. What I hear you saying is that you weren't MAGA, whatever, but you know, you weren't necessarily out there attacking what Trump's doing and so forth. I tend to feel, given the crisis we have in this country, which to me is far different than has occurred under any other president,
Right.
where we have an active effort to undermine our democracy. And I don't probably for this group have to go through all the examples of it.
Right.
I feel that all of us, Republican, and I consider myself a conservative Republican, that we all have a duty to speak out. Granted, we don't have that much of a voice, we're just on a local level, but I just think it's critical not to just not be MAGA, but to be a voice opposing it. And I don't, Liz, I don't know, where did Liz Keating come in? I don't know, 10th or something like 11th or whatever.
Yeah.
I certainly would have liked her as, I guess, most visible Republican to have taken a strong stand against what Trump is doing.
Well, and we did, Phil. I mean, again, it's just I think it's a matter of money. I mean,
Yeah.
I
You just
remember
didn't get your message out. I guess.
yeah,
that.
I mean,
Okay.
every time that you know that there was an opportunity where we were asked about the national environment. I mean, I think it's very look. I mean, you know, the charter movement is a municipal municipal focused. I mean, it is local government focused. And there is no question that the Trump administration has been terrible for cities, both from a funding standpoint, from a policy standpoint. What they're doing on immigration is terrible. I mean, Don Driehaus, particularly on our ticket, very active in organizing against some of the ICE presence, that's occurred here in town. That just, if for whatever reason, that message, not only did it not get out, but the countervailing message that we were somehow MAGA sympathizers just carried the day. And again, the people who did it knew better, but it is what it is.
So, Steve, I guess I have this question, or maybe Phil, who's ever, what is the difference, or how do you explain the difference of if you're a Republican and you voted for Trump, that you don't support what MAGA was standing for, understanding it all came together? Like, can you be a Republican and say, but I didn't vote for Trump?
Yeah, I'm a Republican. I've never voted for Trump.
Okay. So
because in my opinion, not only is he corrupt and a con man and wants to be a dictator, but truthfully, and I've said this on my own podcast, he's not even a conservative, okay? Conservatives believe in free trade. They believe in the rule of law and not pardoning 1,500 criminals. They believe in standing up to dictators. So what's happened in my party is that my party has somehow become brainwashed to forget what Republicans are supposed to stand for.
Thank you.
Well, I would add a little gloss to that, because I'm somebody that came up in Republican politics, probably not as connected to it in a lot of ways as Phil was, maybe, but and I was also somebody who just could not support Trump from day one. And the way I viewed it was that, and this maybe is just sort of to build on what Phil was saying, was that I think that party was so demoralized post Mitt Romney that there really wasn't a strong party structure anymore. And this populist movement, which had always sort of been in the background since the days of Pat Buchanan, just took it over. I mean, with Trump as its head. I mean, I really think you have a populist movement that has housed it. So it really was a third party movement. It's kind of that whole, and there's a really good book, I'm blanking on the name of the author, and it's called Partisans, that kind of traces that populist lineage from, anti-free trade all the way down to flirting with racist and anti-Semitism, from Pat Buchanan in 92 through Ross Perot, through the Tea Party movement, and then they kind of come in with Trump as their head and basically make the Republican Party their home and take it over. So I view Trump as sort of the head of like a third party populist movement that has sort of, taken over the Republican Party. I don't know if it's forever or not. And again, there's been a lot of Republicans who are very willingly going along with it. And I don't mean to try to, tamp down the moral aspect of that. I think it's considerable. But I think that's really kind of the phenomenon we're seeing, which is a Republican Party that was just so weak that it was able to be just subsumed by this Trump populist movement that had really been sort of kicking around since 1991, 92 in a lot of ways. There's a reaction to NAFTA and other things.
Huh. Interesting. Everybody's made great points. The only thing that I would add to it is that, I think everybody's been on point, and you just kind of spoke to it, Steve. Like you said, it comes down to the money, because the more you're talking, the more I'm thinking, I think that there is an appetite for moderates. I think there is an appetite for a third party. I like the idea of the charter party, but it comes down to me. I'm thinking you guys just didn't have enough money to really put who you were and what you stood for out there. The other issue is that, part of the problem was that you were the head of the charter right party and you were a formerly endorsed Republican. And without the money to fully articulate your position, people are going to assume you MAGA, or you're a MAGA sympathizer, you're a Trump sympathizer, right? And so, you had all these things coming together. I also believe that, the crew members who said, maybe that was you who said it yourself, Steve, like there's this polarization right now. You're either a Democrat or Republican. Yeah. And again, with all those factors in place and you don't have the money to really tell your own narrative, well, your narrative is going to be told by the Democrats or by the mayor's office. But I will say this, though. There were a couple things that you did, at least one thing that you did during the campaign that just rubbed me the wrong way. I think you did like this non-endorsement of the mayor or something like that. I'm like, man, I don't want to hear that from you. What I want to hear is what you are going to do. Don't tell me what you're against. Tell me what you're going to do. I just thought, for me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, it was just a loser. And it came across like this Cincinnati is a horrible place vibe, right? Like, and I'm like, well, Cincinnati's so hard, it's so horrible. Why are you here? I kind of felt that way when I hear people going super hard. The city's so bad and everything's bad and this is bad and this. I'm like, well, why are you here? What are you going to do differently? So that was just my own personal thoughts on it. But it sounds like you've been rethinking it and kind of mulling it over. Here's a quick question after you respond to all that stuff. But what's harder? Was it harder losing individually or watching the entire slate lose with you?
Wow, this is a fucking great. Excuse me, this is a great podcast. This is good. I don't know. You can. I'll refer my therapist over to you, Nathan. I mean, he might have some cards. No, I don't really have it. Look,
I can answer that question for him, even if Steve is the most.
Let him answer for itself, Phil.
Oh, all right, Phil, okay. Come on, man.
No. Look. I'll tell you.
We have the same therapist, so we're probably gonna have the same answer.
Well, no, I'll describe it this way. So it's like there's roughly 300,000 people that live in the city at any given time. So it's kind of like asking 300,000 people out on a date and they all say no at once. So it is a unique kind of personal thing that you have to sit with for a little bit. Now, that being said, I did feel particularly bad for Lakita, who is someone that we really recruited and had high hopes for. So one of the things that we really knew that the Charter Party needed to do above all else was sort of reintroduce itself to the Black community, because it had done, historically the Charter Party had done, very well there, but in the last 20, 30 years really had not done a good job, of embracing that community and reaching out there. So we were really hopeful that Lakita was going to be our top vote getter, number one. So I as disappointed as I was personally, I was particularly disappointed for Lakita. I just she gave her heart and soul to that race, and I think is a real community leader. And I love the idea of this being a comeback story that we could be a part of for her. And there was just so much goodwill toward her that I wish she could have gotten over the hump. But all that being said, I mean, look, we understood, at least I understood a couple weeks out where this was going, that the kind of anti-MAGA messaging was working, that we were not breaking through it, and that our calculations had been wrong. And look, I do have to disagree with you a little bit about what we were talking about in the city. There are people in the business community, and there are people in the Democratic Party, frankly, who sometimes find the mayor's conduct and attitude and the way he carries himself to be nothing short of insufferable. And there were times when we were shooting back at the mayor directly. He was shooting at me. I think he called me, quote, uniquely unqualified to serve in public office. And yes, we took what we thought was a humorous fake press release and blasted that out. But at the end, we saw some benefit, I think, at least to engaging with him on that. I mean, he was certainly shooting at us. And there came a point where, good government or not, you have to shoot back. But I also think that we never wanted to run the city down. I disagree that the idea that we ever crossed that line. I don't believe we did. But we also, I felt, had to talk about what was really going on, because I think there is a disconnect, particularly at the police department and the way they deal with their violent crime stats, what is actually happening in the community, the gun violence, the presence of guns. And I know that's a very complex issue. I don't think that the administration was really being safe about the actual lived experience in our neighborhoods, particularly in the West End, particularly in East Westwood, particularly in Price Hill. The amount of casual kind of gunplay that is often uncharged, and even unreported or unaccounted for in the statistics is considerable. And the fact that it was starting to spill over into the downtown business district in those weeks before the election, very troubling and very, just bad for the city. And I felt we needed to have a more honest conversation about it. And I really felt like sometimes the mayor's attitude was, look, if you're criticizing the way the police department's handling this and the city manager's handling it, you're criticizing Cincinnati. In that case, no. We're criticizing the administration, not the city. We love this city. The charter, but nobody on that ticket, didn't love the city, isn't committed to being in this city. I could live somewhere else if I wanted to. I'm lucky, but I don't. I've chosen to raise my children here in the city, and this is where I want to be.
Yeah, I think, Steve, you raise a very good point there, and it's one of the things that I've kind of argued on this podcast, and it's one of the things in the political environment. Again, I can't stress it enough. I think that works against you is that, and it's effectively done by what you just encapsulated is a lot of ways that things have been positioned by, I think, the mayor and some others in this city, that if you are critical of anything that they do, you're anti-Cincinnati. And I think that works in the political environment and in some ways inoculates them from fair criticism, because we are so tribal in this particular arena that you can't be critical of Aftab Pureval and not be interpreted as a Corey Bowman supporter or someone who's anti-Democrat or anti-Cincinnati. And that's great. I mean, that's great political positioning by your opponents, but it's definitely very hard to overcome in a blue city like this with the kind of money and budget that you're working on. It's just it's very difficult to overcome, because what you're talking about is pragmatism, and pragmatism, again, is not super popular in a highly politicized environment.
No, not at all. And again, I mean, I'll just tell you the only disappointment I really had with what occurred we're with some folks in the business community. I mean, look, when we first started to look at this, we had some polling data. I mean, Liz certainly is exceptionally well known. I mean, let's put it this way: Liz, Smitherman, and myself and Lakita, all four had name ID that outstripped most of the people who won. I mean, certainly more than Ryan James and others. We were better known as individuals. But then when you added the low turnout and the partisan slate voting, it didn't matter. And a lot of our friends, in the business community who were very concerned about the drift and direction of things, at the end of the day, they didn't show up financially because they were like, well, they're concerned about, frankly, pissing off the mayor. So, we had a lot of people in our ear on a lot of concerns that were very legitimate, but at the end of the day, not a lot. It didn't always translate into either financial support or voting support. So, I mean, we're definitely going to be back to the drawing board about how we message things and how we do things. But it really is, the current environment is very challenging. Our only thought is that at some point or another, Donald Trump will not define every last bit of our politics, whether it be pro or con.
Hey, I have this thing. I think it's not how you message things. I think it's how you do things. And if you want to do something about Cincinnati, you do it now. So I have 20 complaints for the mayor, the city manager. I don't mind sharing them. I do not share them publicly during an election time when I know that the opposite was going to be detrimental. So I think it's all about timing. So if you're really serious, Steve, your timing is now when he's in office and pushing, where when you actually start messaging it, it goes with what you've been doing. And that wasn't really the case. So I think part of it is just you're trying to win. And the other part is your heart and soul really in it. And now is when that time says that.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was going to say the same thing. Like, I wish that these candidates who had all this to say during the campaign would start right now. If you're going to be running in 2 years, don't wait until a year out. Start now, right? You're not going to get a big bag of cash if you're third-party candidate or your charter right. So, maybe the way you make up for that is, getting out there earlier and just increase your runway and your campaign window.
Right.
And let the people see you out there doing hard work, doing shows like Hype Mike, being out there in front of people. This comes across as, self-serving to do it once you got a campaign up. And I felt the same way with a lot of the critiques. Like, I'm running as a third party or I'm running as a Republican, so I'm going to criticize the people in office. I get it. That's just the way the game goes. But, the more I hear it, it seems so hollow if I don't see you out here in these streets and in the media doing something before the campaign season starts. But that's just me. Anybody else got anything to say? And we'll move to another topic, which is kind of closely related. So I read this. I thought this was wild. I didn't know this was going on, but apparently it is. Apparently the mayor, he made a call over to Metro, and they quietly diverted buses from Government Square. And this happened after the shooting that happened on Government Square. And there's some people, at least there was a quote in the local newspaper in which people said this was racist and classist. And to the crew, I want to ask you your thoughts about this. Is this racist, classist, or is this just good government, to use a term? Hey, the mayor's responding to a situation that happened and he's trying to help public safety. What do you think about this?
So the first thing that I thought about this, and again, this goes back to the last pod and my point, and one of the things that I was critical about is where's the data, right? So, the mayor and others want to have you believe that the crime problems and the situations and everything that's going on downtown are related to bus riders, right? Or somehow those who are on public transit, which I think is a horrible message to send, to say that, the folks who are using your public transportation are part of the reason that crime is so bad in the city. And if that is the case, where is the data that shows that? Where is the link? Where's the data that shows that the crime issues that are happening downtown are directly related to bus riders, and what percentage of that crime is related to those who are getting on the bus? I think somehow or another to blame public transportation for your inability to manage and deal with crime, I think is just terrible messaging for reasons that go outside of class and race. There's no conversation about the safety risks that this provides to those who ride the bus by moving them to other transit stops, the inconvenience that it creates in that, and all of this without data. It's the same issue that I had when they shut down the food trucks. Where is the data? And I think this came up last week in some of the reporting that says that there's been no data provided that shows that shutting down food trucks has had any significant impact on crime downtown. Yet these business owners are, have had their businesses shut down, have had their businesses impacted. So I think that making these types of policy decisions, at least releasing publicly the data that shows or justifies these moves that you're making, I have a problem with that. And not saying that this was a bad decision by the mayor. I'm just saying show your homework. That's all I'm saying. If you're gonna make the case that making these detours and whatnot, is going to impact crime, show us the data, show us the work and research that you've done that shows this is good policy.
Well, I agree, disagree.
Oh yeah, well, Kevin, I look, I'll jump in on that too, because I was, one of the first, real public service endeavors I had as an adult in Cincinnati was serving on the Metro Board for years. I can tell you that on any given time, 80 to 85% of the people on those buses are trying to get to and from work. So it's like a major economic, driver. And it keeps people in our metro system, which I actually think overall is really good, keeps people in the job market. Now, the Government Square thing is a little more complicated than that, I think, because my office is right by it, and there's been a lot of complaints here over time because there's a lot of CPS kids who now use the bus system and who change a Government Square. There have been some minor problems there, fighting, pushing, shoving, just stuff like that. But the gun violence that they're talking about, particularly what happened in front of the federal courthouse and then again later on Fountain Square, from my friends who were involved in the police department that I was talking to throughout the campaign, neither of those big incidents had anything to do with bus riders. Those kids were coming from, they know where they came from. They were not bus riders. So trying to draw that conclusion that there were a couple incidents near Government Square Therefore, it's all related to government squared. Like I could tell you, not only, I mean, just it's factually inaccurate in both of the big issues that I think brought this to the fore. Now, the idea that CPS is that reliant on the bus system, I think is problematic. I think that's got to be addressed long term. How that bus stop is maintained is not good. It's not a true shelter. But I mean, and its positioning is tough. It clogs traffic. I mean, I think that bus stop needs to be dealt with from a logistics standpoint. But the idea of blaming it for the uptick in violence downtown is not only, it's not only like that, show me your work. You said, I can tell you the work's been done. It's not there. And I think that's a very, if that's why they did what they did, that wasn't right. And I think it just makes things harder on the working people who are, and the students who are depending on those buses to get around.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty hard thing to solve right now, is because you have businesses who need to take care of their customers and their employees. And then you have school routes. And I think when it really was a problem is when Don had changed their school route and they were going down there. So you had all of these things happening. But I think that is being done just to say you've done something. I don't know that it has anything that you can say is going to change something. I think now people are just looking for actions, and some actions people are taking just because I know some of the people who've been yelling about the bus routes. And I think someone's voice was louder than others and they made this choice, and I'm not sure they have anything that they can tag it to. But they have to do something. And I think that's what we're going to find is people just trying to do anything, because to actually stop this costs a whole lot of money and a whole lot of change. And I don't think anyone is really up for the whole thing that needs to happen when it comes to gun violence.
Yeah. I think one of the problems I have here is who gets the priority attention about who you're concerned about. So we say, we're concerned about these downtown businesses and things of that, but no consideration is given to the working people who are inconvenienced by whatever these changes create for them from a time standpoint, from a safety standpoint. So the challenge that I have is, to your point, Alandes, some voices are louder than others. Some voices get, greater consideration than other voices. And it's never the work, as much as, and this is why I'm critical of some of these folks on council, as much as they claim to want to hear from the everyday person in the working class Cincinnatian, and they always take a back seat to the business community. I mean, every single time the folks that they claim that they represent and that they need votes from, they're the voices that always get ignored at the expense of those who are the rich and powerful and those who are in authority. And that's the thing that frustrates me is if the working people are your people and that's your constituency, then those are the people whose interests you need to be arguing for in this situation, not blaming them for things that they have nothing to do with and making their lives more inconvenient. That's a problem I have.
Yeah, the transit system is so important to every city, and making sure that people who need to get somewhere can get there. Like that, you need to have a robust one, especially to call yourself a major city. And I think we struggled with that, period. We struggled with it when we did the streetcar. We struggled with really saying fundamentally, we are going to do what it needs to get people from point A to point B. And so your point is completely valid, Kevin. I think that when you add the two and try to figure out what can we do to fix the gun violence, again, they're just focused on this little spot. They want it moved. We need to focus on eliminating it, not just moving it. And that's what I think is one of the largest problems. But our transit system, it is important, you guys. If we're going to even draw people to our city, it is extremely important.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but a few years ago, weren't we in competition to be a hub for Amazon or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out that one of the major reasons why we didn't is because of our transportation system.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is it's like, I think people know where we need to go, but it becomes politically expedient to run against these ideas, right? Like in theory, I like the idea of the streetcar. I think it should be expanded, but it becomes politically expedient to run against it, right? They call it a boondoggle. It's not worth it. But then we'll turn right around and wonder why we don't grow and why we don't compete with other cities for major projects like the Amazon hub. I mean, again, politics again.
Yeah, well, the streetcar is a boondoggle right now because it only goes downtown. You know, if the streetcar was expanded to other parts of the city, it would be infinitely more valuable than what it is currently. And I think those who want to run against the streetcar use the lack of success because of what it currently is as a reason to not want to invest in the expansion of it. I would say that the limited progress or results that we've seen from it are reason to expand it, to not continue to pour money into it and leave it the way that it is. Make it more efficient, make it more effective, and expand it to other parts of the city. It will get used. I mean, it absolutely will get used. But as you said, the politics of the streetcar is one of those things that you just can't get. That's toxic right now. Like nobody running for city council is going to run on a platform of expanding the streetcar. You would get laughed out of Cincinnati if you even suggested that as a candidate.
Even when it's the right thing to do, right? It's the right thing to do. And then Iris makes this point. I mean, think about this. Here we are talking about why we don't grow. Let's not forget, we had all these, what was this, Obama era dollars for light rail. In our statewide government sent the money back. Yeah. That could have put a lot of Ohioans to work. That could have made us more efficient. It was federal dollars. It was a grant, as I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong, which means we don't have to pay it back. So it's like, we have these opportunities, but because of politics, I'm speaking we in a general larger sense, not me or anybody here in particular, but just the politics as they play out, when they play out. We have these opportunities and we don't take them. Then we turn around and bellyache about why we don't have the opportunities and why we don't grow.
Well, we always revisit our strategy every time we change the political office, which I think is crazy. You're supposed to come up with a strategy and really try to drive towards it no matter who's in office. But I think the other thing, I just want to go back, Kevin, to about actually on Fountain Square, a lot of people catching the bus, even from the major companies there, they didn't want it there either. It was really it makes them uncomfortable leaving work. And if you're ever on Fountain Square, you'll see all the different people that's on there. And sometimes they were scared. So I think that this decision was bigger than just one thing, but it is just trying to solve something that's bigger than a bus.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just think it's insane. I was just going to say, I think it's just insane to talk about moving a hub or tearing a hub down because of your inability to police that or make it safer, and then just divert that problem to another neighborhood where, again, this is a matter of whose voices are louder. So you're going to say we don't want this problem downtown on Fountain Square because the people are scared there. So let's move it someplace else, and we don't give a hooey if the people in that neighborhood or in that place are scared or inconvenienced. We just don't want the folks on Fountain Square. To me, that's insanity as anybody who's representing the entirety of a city to say that that's okay. And that's why I'm saying that these knee-jerk move things around sort of policy decisions instead of actually coming up with decisions that will effectively deal with the issue. This doesn't effectively deal with the issue. It just moves someplace else. It makes it somebody else's problem because we don't want it downtown. And that, to me, is not good policy. That's not effective government. That's just kicking the can down the road and making it somebody else's problem.
Well, Kevin, to that point, too, to me, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm relitigating the election, but I'm going to a little bit relitigate the election. This was part of our critique of city council and the administration and the mayor, which is this and the business community, and frankly, in the Chamber of Commerce, too. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're, I think, different as charterites and Republicans. We're critical of all of it. And 3CDC would go into this camp as well, is that these folks had a direct line to the mayor and the city manager to take care of these, what they perceived as their problems on a micro level. You want the bus lines changed? I know I've heard anyway, of which CEOs called and complained about Government Square and got that done. Okay, when there was some police overtime set, we know it's a matter of public record. 3 CDC properties were elevated and got those there. We know that the Jeff Ruby restaurant got some special treatment from in terms of extra enforcement during and post the shooting. That is that sort of like that is how this administration has been working, rather than looking at this stuff. And they're dealing with, in the food truck people, all that it was kind of screw over some small business people in the end with no kind of data to back it up. And we're doing these little kind of micro interventions based on complaints from different stakeholders in the business community, rather than taking a more fundamental look at what would make the city more livable and more safe and better. And it is that and that is to me not the sign of a healthy city, that if you're kind of connected or wealthy or whatever, you can call the mayor and call the city manager and get a couple things done for you.
But Steve, come on now. Let me be here with this, all these Pollyannish kind of, let's be real. If you were the mayor, it would work the exact same way. And you go to any city in the world, power, money, influence, the squeaky wheel, that's what moves it. And if you want to stay in office and you want to get campaign contributions, you're going to have to answer those calls and you're going to have to answer those requests. That's the way it goes. So it's not, to me, it's not just indicative of just AvTab. It's indicative of politics and a system that runs on money and influence and power. I don't care who is in office. But if these individuals from downtown, let me finish our land. I don't care who is, if I was in office, if I was the mayor, and some of these big names call me, I got to answer the phone and listen to what they have to say. That's the way it works, period.
Yeah, and Nathan, you're 100. I don't disagree with anything that you said, but my thing is don't position yourself like that's not who you are. Just be real about it. Be real with the voters about
what does that look like?
You down, you in the pocket with the business community. Don't act like, hey, I'm for the people and I'm listening to the people and the people this, when you know that when it comes down to the business community and the people, who's going to win that battle? They don't say that. They don't position themselves. They don't tell that to the voters when they're out trying to get their votes. They don't say, hey, if it comes down to you and Jeff Ruby, guess who's going to win? Guess whose call I'm going to take? And guess who I'm not going to listen to? Guess who I'm going to defer to in those situations? That's not how they position it. And it's some people didn't like it, and this is the challenge of the one party rule that we currently have in Cincinnati. We're talking about Bond Hill and Hyde Park and neighborhoods that are frustrated with City Hall not listening to them. Yet overwhelmingly, they voted for the same people who are not listening to them. Mr. Gregston wrote an op-ed and he made this point, and he was right. 85% of Bond Hill voted for Mayor Pureval, right? They voted for him the same, and Hyde Park was the same way. The council they voted for gave them connected communities and what they were dealing with there. And so this is the other side of that double-edged sword of when you're voting for people who have shown you that as much as they say they for the people, they're not doing it for the people when it comes down to the developers and the business versus what the people want. You cannot like it, but look at the objective facts. In every situation, where have the people, tell me one situation where the people have won out over the business.
Yeah, but the people don't vote. So this is what's important that you have to understand when you're sitting in an office, trying to figure out what strategy you employ. First of all, you got to get elected. And if only 30% is going to actually vote, then you have to go look at the businesses to see what they're driving to get them to vote. So you have to listen to the business owners, because we don't vote. And then when you talk about Bond Hill voting for him, they did not like that big decision that was made, but we didn't give them a choice. Who the heck? I mean,
no, you're right. You're right, Alandes.
The girl was going to vote for the other guy. Tell me. Right. And then when we look at city council, I would trade trade two of the people for someone in your camp, Steve. I would have thought about it. but I couldn't put my finger on whether they had voted for Trump, because to me, that's a slam dunk for me. If you support Project 2025, Trump, MAGA, and all that discriminatory mess, I'm not rocking with you. But there's a couple people that I would have said, because I really wanted a diverse table. We need that. But to be quite honest, don't say what the people want, because the people don't tell anybody what they want. If we want to focus on something, focus on civic education and making sure people understand why their vote matters. Focus on the fact that they will do anything for the Black community if we actually voted, because we would put them in a pickle where they didn't have a choice. But right now, we just have to take what we get.
Right.
So this is where we are. And I just think right now with the bus thing, if you have a different place, call them and figure it out and come up with a solution, and then tell everyone and make sure they know this is what the solution should have been. Be louder, but we have to vote.
Well, you're right. And Ms. Powell, I mean, in fairness to, the voters in Bond Hill, I mean, to my knowledge, I never heard Bowman say anything to the voters in Bond Hill or ever even campaign in Bond Hill, to my knowledge. I mean, I don't think he made even a stab at it. So, I mean, and he did not present an alternative there at all. But in terms, if I go back to Nathan's, the idea that we're being Pollyanna-ish about this, there I do respectfully disagree. I mean, like there's got to be some space in urban politics in any city for sort of, general people's concerns, workers' concerns, ground level concerns. It can't just all be about the business community behind the scenes dictating everything. And I'm not saying that the business community shouldn't play a large and maybe even outsized role, because they are creating the jobs, and I understand all that. But the idea that just individual personalities can snap their fingers and get the government, local officials to do something at their request, whether it is in the broader interest or not, I'm sorry, I don't care if it's AFTAB, or I don't care if it's the mayor of Chicago, I don't care if it's Gavin Newsom or whoever. At some point, someone also has to step back and say, thank you for your thoughts, Mr. CEO, but we also have to look out for the broader public concerns here. And I do expect that from public officials. Maybe that makes me kind of a Pollyanna, but I do expect that.
Well, no, the Pollyannish part comes in where it's a mixture. It's not either or. It's going to be a little bit of both, right? Yeah. We could probably run down where the people are getting their priorities, but when you're dealing with a political system that runs on money,
right?
Money, because we talked about that earlier. That's the reason why you guys weren't able to amplify your message. You didn't have the money,
right?
So we got a system that's run on money, and it's not tax supported for to get on TV and to get internet ads and to get videographers to do whatever they do, and photographers. Well, then you got to answer to that money to help you get in office, and that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, Nathan, I would agree with you almost 100% on that, except for one thing. And when you look at who the two highest vote getters in the Cincinnati City Council election were, they were Jan Michelle Kearney and they were Scotty Johnson.
But we're talking about the mayor, though.
And by and large, I understand we're talking about the mayor, but I'm going to make a larger point here. By and large, those two were frequently the two who were on the losing ends of votes that you would say they are of the people. So what that says to me is that there is an appetite and an appreciation in the city for people who don't do what you say people feel like they have to do. I said it in the column that I wrote. Don't mistake AFTAB's big win as any kind of statement on people being thrilled with him and the effectiveness of his administration. I think it's exactly what Alandes said. There was no choice. And I've been saying this since May. There was no choice in this mayoral election. AFTAB was always going to win this because of who his opponent was. I think you would have broad agreement that if there was a legitimate Democratic candidate, a Republican probably wouldn't have won, But you're not going to get this because Democrats aren't going to challenge each other in
and
that
neither
way.
would Republicans, and neither would a charter right. Neither would a
But
Republican or a charter right.
If you would have had a viable Democratic alternative to AFTAB, that let's just say Michelle Kearney or an Alicia Reese or somebody who would have been a viable Democratic alternative to him, he may not have won, because AFTAB is a nice looking package. As a person, I like AFTAB. He checks off a lot of boxes. Good looking guy, affable guy. You know, he's held some public offices here. But there are a lot of people who feel like the mayor loves the idea of being mayor than he actually does of doing.
And guess what, Kevin?
Governing.
And guess what? If Alicia Reese was mayor, or Jan Michelle Lemon Curry, that happens for anybody in a position. I don't care who the mayor is. You always gonna have critics. You always gonna have somebody that's gonna say we can do better. But
these are people who have a track record, Nathan.
But people said it about AFTAB before he got in office.
Will about Alicia Reese, and I've been critical of her on some things. But one thing I will never criticize Alicia Reese for is not being afraid to go up against the power structure and stand for the people. And I think her track record.
If Alicia Reese was the mayor, she would have some people that would say that she ain't effective. That's just the way the game goes. I don't care whenever you're in a seat.
Looking at the facts. I mean, she's been very effective.
I didn't say she wasn't. What I'm saying is I don't care.
If she was a white male, listen, let me say this, and then I'll give you the floor. If Alicia Reese was a white male, she would be one of the most lauded local public politicians.
But she's not a white male.
I'm just saying. I mean, if you want to make an effectiveness case,
who cares?
I would venture to say Alicia Reese has been far more effective in her political career than AFTAB Pureball ever has been.
If we could make a perfect candidates like you're trying to do out of Legos and make them perfect, then they'd be perfect. You don't get a perfect candidate. You get what you get. And all the point I'm trying to make is, it don't matter who is in what position. You're going to have somebody who's saying you ain't doing a good enough job. It's the way it goes. That's just the way it goes for everybody. It goes for AFTAB. It went for Obama. People right now talk about Michelle Obama running. If she ran and became the president, people would criticize her. That's just the way the game goes. So, I mean, to take the critiques of people about leadership as some sort of like, some type of sign that they're not doing a good job. I just don't think that that's the right way to look at it. It's just.
I'm talking track record. I'm not talking about anecdotal evidence. I'm talking about delivery.
We talked about the track record before. I mean, like I said, you asked me on the last show what were two big things that he did. I gave you two big things, and there were people in the audience who's like, yeah, I got my medical bills taken care of. So it all depends on whether the policies are touching you in a way that you can really feel. So if the policies don't really touch you, you're going to think the policies don't matter. If the policies touch you, you think the policies matter. That's just the way the game goes, no matter who is in office or who is in a leadership position. We all loved Obama, and you got a bunch of black folks who can't stand Obama. He didn't do enough. So it all depends on your perspective and who you are and your knowledge and whether the policies really touched you or not.
So I agree, but I'm going to say this, Kevin, really quick about Alicia. I agree. She's just like, she drives for people and no apology. She goes strong. Sometimes if you rather on your team than not, that's what I say, is that she really goes strong. I think about Scotty, who we were just talking about. He was the only person who stood up and voted for the Bond Hill situation. He stood up and said it. And so you do have people for people, and it's a balancing act is all I'm saying. I don't care who is the mayor. I don't care who's in city council. You are balancing the needs of business and the needs of people.
Right.
And I told someone this recently. We just one murder of a black man by a police away from starting everything all over again. It just takes one. And you can't always zero back to exactly why it happened, right? Unless you go in their family home and look at how they was raised. It's bigger than politics. It's a lot bigger than politics. It's about family values and all of that. And if we're not talking about that, we're really not solving it.
So Alandes, I agree with you 100%. It is a balance. But my point is there is no balance, right? When you talk about balance, that means I'm weighing the needs of the community with the needs of the business community, right? And so you're absolutely right. You can't ignore either, whether you're the mayor or whether you're a member of city council. But what the case I'm making is there is no balance. The working everyday person loses almost every single time. And that's not balance, right? Balance would be, okay, win some, lose some, it kind of balances out. The people get their way this time, business community get their way. There's not to pretend like there's that kind of balance in major issues. It's just not there. And that's my argument. I agree with you 100%. It is a balancing act, but there's no balance, at least that I see. I'm open to being proven wrong. Like I said, if you can show me in a major issue where the people have won lately, I'll back down. But I think you're going to struggle to find a situation where when there was an issue where the business community came, maybe you might say city council backing down on the Hyde Park situation was a win for the people, right? But that wasn't a win for the people that the people didn't get without having to threaten to put a referendum on the ballot. It's not like city council was on board with the people from jump. They basically had to be forced into backing down off of that. Otherwise, would have been progress, development, wins out almost every single time.
Well, it depends on what you're looking at. I mean, because some might say, to answer your question, and again, you brought this up, you got Michelle, Lemon Kearney, and Scotty Johnson, top vote getters. There's your win for the people. And their influence on council. But you asked for the answer. I just gave you an answer. It depends on how you look at it, though. And you're talking about policy or you're talking about people. So,
it was definitely a win for the people, but it's only 2 wins out of 9.
So now you want to
So again, to me, the win,
I gave you 2.
To me, the results matter, right? Like a win means, hey, I'm getting something that I can discernibly look at.
You got 2 city council members. It's for the people. They can discernibly look at that, right? And again, I mean, their influence
by themselves ain't gonna win a lot.
Yeah, I think you're talking about.
That's like the Bengals. We got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but we still 3-7. That ain't a winning record.
I hate sports analogies when it comes to politics. I think it's 2 completely different things. I think it's 2 completely different things.
I'm not going to be on a sports show talking about sports, but I think you're talking about big wins when it comes to like what happened with the bus, when it talks about the curfew or not. And I'm going to look to see, because I do think I have seen efforts, but I think you want to know where people were chosen and what they wanted versus businesses. And I can't answer it. I'm going to go look though, because I think that actions have been there. So are we getting first downs? Yes. Are we scoring? Maybe not. So I think you want to know the score.
Absolutely. Because touchdowns win games. Yeah. You can have a whole bunch of first downs. It happens every week. Right. But it's what I said. Touchdowns, you're not winning.
Yeah. It's what I said about affirmative action. You didn't have to score a touchdown. You just had to make some first downs and say you were trying.
That's the Democratic Party's approach to Black Americans.
Oh, I don't know. That's not the truth. But what you just said isn't true. And what I wasn't trying to say that at all. You took what I was saying. I did. And I have data to say, if I said it, I can prove it. And what I was talking about was affirmative action, giving that as an example. But I get what you're saying, Kevin. And I am going to look to see where have we won.
Michelle Obama recently, she was at an event and people keep asking her to run and will she run? And she had a very, very interesting video in which she just turned to the audience and said, listen, I ain't playing with y'all. I'm not running because you are not ready for a female president. And I would agree with this. But my question is, unless somebody on the panel disagrees with that, I think part of the reason why Kamala lost was her gender. But my question is, why do people keep turning to Michelle Obama to save the Democratic Party or to run for office?
Because she can. And I believe wholeheartedly. I disagree with Michelle Obama. I think Michelle Obama is the one candidate that the Democrats could run, whether she's black, female, whatever, that Michelle Obama is a beloved figure. Just like people used to talk about Oprah back in the day when Oprah was that big, Michelle Obama is that big. And I said it at the time when Joe Biden stepped down. I thought Michelle Obama would have mopped the floor with Donald Trump if she had run instead of Kamala Harris. I said that at that time. I'm like, the Democrats' saving grace is Michelle Obama running for president. There is no question that if you're talking about in the next few years, the next couple of elections, having a woman president, she is the best bet for that. I don't believe you can put up. I do think she's right about America not being serious about any other female candidate for president, but I think that she would definitely break that mold and be a serious contender to win the presidency. That's just my opinion.
Wow.
But I just think Michelle Obama is the exception to that rule. I think she's the exception to what she said.
Wow, that's interesting. I disagree completely, but I want to hear what the crew has to say. What do you guys think?
I believe that Michelle Obama would mop the floor with any candidate, and even if vice president, if she would run with Andy Beshear and Michelle Obama ticket, you just write them in. You just might as well write them in. It's unbelievable.
If she ran as VP or president?
If she ran as VP, just like if any ticket that she's on, I believe that'd be a shoe.
But we're talking about president.
President, if she wanted to be president, she could be president. I mean, she's a shoe-in. She's beloved, and I mean, she's credentialed.
Credentialed? She got a podcast and a book. What you mean credentialed?
She's been in the White House. She has a long. She's been in the White House. I believe she would be a public speaker. I believe she has a good chance to be. She would, if she wanted it. And let's take this back. If she wanted to do it, she would get the votes to be elected president. Hands down. No, I don't believe anybody would even have. She would have beat Donald Trump.
She would have.
Definitely would have beat Donald Trump. Definitely would have. It would have been because I've been seeing in the chat, and I've been so good by not even taking the bait whenever people were like fame and them are trying to bait me and stuff like that and making crazy statements. But Michelle Obama is a black woman. If we were handing out reparations checks, Kamala Harris would not receive a reparations check.
Huh? Michelle
Obama would receive a reparations check. So when you put the Democratic Party out there, see, here's what we're talking about, Phil. You can see them. We start talking about this, and he wants to interrupt. So I start hitting on subjects. I hit on a subject, and then Phil wants to interrupt. He wants to interrupt every time I hit on a subject.
Let him finish, Phil. Let him finish.
Every time I hit on a subject, he wants to interrupt. Kamala Harris would not receive reparations because she did not come from descendants of slaves. She did not come from chattel slavery. So we're talking about reparations that would go out to descendants of slaves. She would not receive it. Michelle Obama would. So if the Democratic Party was putting up someone as a black woman candidate, that would go, she would be a black woman candidate. Kamala Harris, they put up as a black woman candidate and gave the Republicans a leg in to say she's really not black. She's really not black. She's Indian and Jamaican. And then she ran on the blackness. And then she had to, because I'm just giving you political strategy and why I believe Michelle Obama would have a chance and a leg in to win, because she would really be a black woman. And it wouldn't be a fake black like Barack, like an African American who is not, did not come through chattel slavery, who did not come through chattel slavery and put up as a black person who did not come to come on, man. I mean, whenever I start talking my talking points, Phil always interrupts whenever I start talking stuff that is that's true talk. Barack Obama's father is from Africa. He did not come from an African American slave chattel slavery. He would not receive a reparations check. So therefore, the Democratic Party puts
that has nothing to do with anything, though. Yes, that has nothing to do with anything.
To you, it doesn't. To you, it doesn't. To you, it doesn't.
Tarris, would you get one?
Yeah, I would get one.
Because I'm not so sure. Because honestly, I'm not exactly sure how I'm not sure how they're going to decide to pass them out. But
and that's why they won't. And that's why we will never get reparations.
Okay.
That's why we will never get it. As we can go,
Tarris, why don't you produce one of those 21
all the
and
black
me?
people on this panel would agree. All the black people on this panel could agree that we all are pro reparations. We all would take reparations, and we are growing.
All Tarris had to say was this: he took us down a rabbit hole that was completely unnecessary with the reparations. All he had to say, which is his larger point, which I happen to agree with, is that a lot of the things that the Republicans use to tear down Kamala Harris, they wouldn't be able to use it as effectively on Michelle Obama. That's all Tarris had to say without taking us down.
Now you know why I interrupted. The guy goes
and I'm talking about political strategy. I'm talking about political strategy. Someone, because in the chat, someone says that something about how, and Ms. Powell, I'm going to answer your question about how someone could vote for Donald Trump and not be a MAGA. Because I've been saying on this podcast since I've been on here for a year, for an entire year, that there's a difference between MAGA and the Republican Party. MAGA hijacked the Republican Party with Donald Trump in 2016.
Who'd you vote for, Tarris?
The first election, I voted for a third party. I voted for Libertarian. This one,
who'd you vote for?
This time, and I voted anti-Kamala Harris.
Yes or no?
I voted anti-Kamala Harris, and I voted anti-Kamala Harris for the reasons that I stated earlier. I voted for Trump.
Yes,
no? I did. I said that. I've been saying that on this programming for a bit. But my vote for Trump, it allows me to be serious in the Republican Party and look at them and say, hey, I don't agree with what you guys are doing. I don't agree with what you guys are doing, and I can step away and be away from it. But that's how there's a divide in the Republican Party right now between MAGA and Republicans who have been Republicans before Donald Trump.
Okay.
This party has been going on before Donald Trump, and you guys want to play. And that's why the rabbit hole that you guys live in, and that's why I come in over here and I talk to you guys about this all the time. You guys start, everybody who is Republican, you put us all in a label. And we're fighting against MAGA just like you are.
So let me.
How could you vote for Trump and say you're fighting against MAGA?
Because Kamala Harris was a non-vote for me, and it was such a non-vote for me. Kamala Harris was such a non-vote for me because of packaging, about the Democratic Party, about they say they're going to save democracy, but they had zero a national convention. Come on, everything that you guys did with the packaging of Kamala Harris is the reason why she lost. Whenever the immigration, the taking Megan Thee Stallion and all these people out here dancing around, twerking for votes, having clinics in front of these Democratic national conventions and doing all that kind of stuff. No, I don't agree with that stuff, and I don't agree with that as a black man, and I don't agree with them putting someone like Kamala Harris up and saying that they are a black person and having the ability to be scrutinized by the Republican Party.
So, Tarris, I just have to say one thing to you first. First of all, yelling is not helping what you're saying. That's first of all. So you should calm your voice because I'm really trying to listen to you. The second thing is, it's very hard for me to understand that you're actually talking about how people package stuff up with the package you're bringing. Because what you're saying right now does not hold water, because you can't worry about someone twerking, which is one of your points, and actually give our country away to a rapist and we're not talking about how you feel. We're talking about the court of law. We're not talking about what you know. You gave our country away to Project 2025, and it appears you can read. And if you can read, you already see that it's happened. I'm gonna go back to what we're talking about with Michelle. I'm not sure she will win. Let me tell you why. Is the reason why MAGA exists is because President Obama was elected. Point, period. The reason why he was able to win the second term is he decided he really had to change his perspective on gay marriages. It was one of the things that helped him get in office the second time, which is what he has said he wouldn't do, which is what pissed people off. But people know in politics, you have to be ready to do something different just to get in office. Thirdly, if you think you deserve reparations, I'm going to tell you, if you voted for Trump, I would be the first person to say your ass, your behind doesn't deserve it. Because what you did was you took away some of the fundamental things that we needed as Black people. What you did was you made it where we are all yelling and arguing, and we can't even have political debate because we don't understand the difference between a Republican, a MAGA, someone who is trying to oppress and suppress us, someone who doesn't care about women. You voted for that instead of families. And we can't get past that. So everything you saying doesn't add up to zero.
My rebuttal.
I'm going to finish. I am 100% going to finish what I'm saying because I listened to all you were saying. And I am going to call bull crap. So I'm not sure what you're trying to really grab onto and feel good about yourself with this whole Republican value thing. But I will tell you, true Republicans, a true Republican that cared about this country, and I know some true ones, they couldn't vote for Trump. They didn't have it in their stomach. They didn't have it in their soul. They couldn't vote for him because they knew he was bad for our country. Our country. We're not even talking about September. We're not even talking about January 6th.
Oh my gosh.
We're talking about policy. We're talking about policy. We're talking about the fact that they are coming up for our kids. They didn't care about abortion. They want your policy. Like you don't get it.
I get it.
You don't get it.
I get it. And the reason why I talk like that is because every time that I speak, Phil interrupts me. Every time that I speak, every time that I speak, Phil interrupts me.
No, I'm getting ready to stop talking. No, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stop talking because I'm about finished. So I'm gonna wrap up, and then you get to talk, or whoever Nate decides get to talk less. But I'm gonna tell you, it is nothing more unattractive than a man who doesn't care about their community. And voting for Trump, you didn't give a shit, a crap about nothing. You didn't. You didn't care enough about us. And then you worried about where actually the vice president came from. If you actually are voting on policies and character, it is no way you could have voted for Trump.
Can I speak? Can I speak?
Yeah, I am now finished.
When you say that I don't care about my community, Ms. Powell, you're mistaken, and I'm not even going to go there. The reason why I voted for Donald Trump, and the reason why I say that I'm a different Republican, was I was raised with my father and my mother, and my father was a Republican, and my father taught me the ways of how to. I've been involved in the political process since I've been in 9 years old, canvassing, walking the streets, being in student council, getting elected student council, being class president, freshman, sophomore, junior class, going to Boys State, being elected in state officials capacities at a very young age. And I hold an elected official position right now in my community. So for you to say, I put my neck out on the line to be an outspoken Republican, to be elected in my community, and has made tremendous change in the youth in my community and other things as a Republican. But I will say this, and the reason why I did this is because I wanted to even go further in my political aspirations, maybe run for state house or something like that in my community, which is in Kentucky, which is majority, super majority. I'll cut it. There's no path to win as a Democrat. So I align myself up more with the Republican Party. But as I voted for Donald Trump, let's fast forward to right now. When I see, and I met with Republican Party who is inheritedly racist, when you have these young Republicans putting out these tweets and putting out these emails that are being leaked, and it gives me an opportunity to speak power to truth, truth to power. and I say, hey, I don't like the way that the Republican Party is going, and they think that I'm going to be somebody who's going to put on a red MAGA hat and follow right behind them, and I can denounce him and I can say, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
But they still got your vote, Tarris. They still got my vote. They had my vote. No, bro. I got to stop you because I've been letting you.
They had my vote then. They had my vote then. They had my vote then.
Very good job.
But I'm saying she said
wait, Tarris. I'll let you go, Tarris.
No, but she said
I'll let you go. And you had the floor for a minute, bro. You done had the floor for a minute. I had it for like no, Tarris, come on, cuz you done had the floor for a minute.
And I did not interrupt him. Let me.
I haven't said nothing for a complete hour.
We also haven't heard from Phil or Steven.
Yeah. Well, God bless them if they have anything to say on that. I will just say, Tarris, the hypocrisy is mind-boggling of what you say, and this is the problem of what everybody has. You talk about, I stand up and I do all of this. You still gave the man your vote. You talk about all of these things that you did not like about Kamala Harris, yet you supported somebody who incited an insurrection, who was convicted on 34. The stuff you talking about with Kamala Harris.
Ridiculous.
Wait, Tarris, no, you're ridiculous, bro. You're ridiculous. You're my friend, but you're being real ridiculous right now. You're being real ridiculous right now to talk about whether Kamala Harris was black or not, to talk about Kamala Harris, whether she was black or not, like that determined your vote. Like that was way more impactful than somebody who incited an insurrection and somebody who is 34 felony convictions, whether or not somebody is black or not. That was your determining factor, bro. That's ridiculous. Here's why I say, Tarris, let me finish, bro. I let you talk. Let me finish. Here's why I say you deserve reparations, bro. This is why you deserve reparations, because you are mentally still in slavery. You are mentally, and I say that with all the due respect that I can muster.
I'm the most person on this panel.
You should be first in line for reparations.
The most freest person on this panel. Oh my God! You say that I'm a slave. Oh my! You have
no. I said mentality. I said mentally. Because what you just saying, what you're laying out is textbook.
That is insane. For one to say that I do nothing for the community, and then the other to say that I am mentally enslaved is insane. That's insanity, because I don't go along with I don't have the luxury of having a Democratic majority over in like you guys have in Emmons County. I don't have that. I have to deal with the legislation that I have to deal with over in Kentucky.
Principle, bro.
You're talking about principle. You're talking about how do you get legislation? Okay, hold on. I'll stop right here. This goes back to my point when I said Black people are okay with getting first downs, and that's it with the Democratic Party. When I'm trying to prove something, y'all are good with going along with the Democratic Party just to get your little first downs. But when they start talking about touchdowns and getting something really something done for the Black community, oh no, we can't do that. So there's where I will stop right there and then. So, we can agree to disagree.
I'm not going to agree to disagree. I'm just going to say this to you first of all. I said you're not doing anything for the community. I mean that with the fact. Let me finish. Because I ain't say nothing.
You cannot say that.
You don't know what I'm about to say next, do you? You don't have the slightest idea what I'm about to say yet. So I want to make sure you understand it fully in the context I gave it. Is that if you did something so egregious against our community by voting for him, in my perspective, and for me, that means whatever you're doing good, it didn't matter because you gave us away. That's first thing. Let me finish. The second thing is that Republican values I get from a long time ago, at least 8 years, 12 years back. I get. I understand that it's for companies and corporations. I get that. What I don't get is someone who continues to be a Republican during this situation with MAGA. And you're
I can respond to that, Alandes. It's first of all, in my position as someone who served as a Republican in office, and hopefully have some people at least know my political background, what I am. I think I get a lot more stuff published in newspapers, and I get a lot more attention because I am a Republican speaking out against Trump. If I became a Democrat, I mean, nobody paid any attention. And so, and by the way, I have this podcast later today. I'm actually interviewing Bill Kristol. You guys may or may not know, but this was like a long time Republican conservative, worked for both Bushes and everything. He has been one of the strongest voices against Donald Trump from the moment Trump walked down the escalator. So I would just say to you, I happen to think those of us who have traditionally been Republicans, it's important for us to stay in that lane.
No,
I think we could have more impact
Yeah.
in fighting the whole MAGA thing than if we just switch parties.
And
Let
I am
me
an
say it
elected
differently.
official Republican
Let
right
me
now.
say it differently. I am talking about Republicans that voted for Trump. I give money to the Lincoln Project. You know the Lincoln Project, right?
I worked with the Lincoln Project.
Okay, so you understand what I'm saying, right?
Okay, I just want to clarify.
I am talking about Republicans that voted for Trump.
Right.
I get the Republican movement. I could never be that. No matter how much money I make or don't make, I could never sell out my community because you can't trust corporations to do right by Black folks. You can't.
Well,
They don't.
I would say there's more than that, but my mother had an expression called I've used this before. My mother used to have an expression. She'd refer to the good Germans, and what that meant is people who maybe are good people, but they just go along. They won't speak out against evil, and that is what has infected the Republican Party.
So I'm agreeing with you, Tarris. You actually said you voted for this mess, and what I'm saying to you is that I don't know if you have the what Kevin was saying is that you're still back mentally in slavery. I do know that you would be one of the people that Harriet Tubman would probably pull her gun out on to say you are putting us at risk, brother, as we're on our journey to freedom. You are putting us on. Let me. I haven't interrupted you. I just plan on not interrupting you. So go ahead and you talk. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, so
your words that you're saying toward me about works in the community. All I'm going to do is just going to make me work harder. I'm going to make me work harder and make me do better as an elected Republican or beside my name as an elected official is a Republican name. Is a Republican. So you can say whatever you want about me and my community and me being because my vote for Donald Trump in that election that I'll never have to vote for him ever again. I'll never have to vote for him ever again. I would never have to vote for him ever again. And the people who I support do not support him. And I've been saying that on this podcast since I've been on this podcast, but nobody will listen because everybody is tunnel vision. And they don't see anything outside anything. Even when I explain it, you don't listen. So I'm like, I'll just keep taking the darts.
We do listen.
You just came out talking about.
Tarris, your explanations make no sense to
none.
anybody. They don't make sense to a thinking person. And I wasn't trying to insult you, brother, when I said you were still in slavery mentally, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of Black folks who are still in slavery mentally that fall for the same tricks that pitted us against each other or have us believing that white people's ice is colder and we start picking each other apart. The fact that no, Tarris, let me just say this. This is what. And you know I love you, man. But I'm being honest with you because I love you. For you to sit here and to point out the things that you didn't vote for Kamala Harris for, which in my opinion are sort of inconsequential minor things compared to the things that you were willing to overlook that are significant about the guy that you voted for. That is typical Willie Lynch pit the slave against one another for the plantation owner, regardless of the atrocities that he's committed against your people. You're still going to side with him because he's going to point out that this person's skin is darker than the other, so that makes them better. So for you to sit here and say, I didn't like Kamala Harris because She tried to pretend like she was black, but she didn't, while at the same time voting for a man that incited an insurrection on the Capitol, who refused to accept election results, who had 34 felony convictions, who was twice impeached.
You got the cue card.
Those things mattered less to you than Kamala Harris's blackness. And if you don't, Tarris, and if you don't see the problem with that, then brother, that's why I said you are still mentally enslaved. You have
the luxury, and I'll say this and I'll stop. You have the luxury of working within a Hamilton County Democratic Party.
So what you're saying is your ambition is greater than your principles. That's what you're saying to me, is that your ambition
hold on. That's why I stopped. That's why I paused. When you cut me off. When emails came out in the Republican Party emails, and I told y'all that on the last time I was on this podcast, I told the highest ranking Republican that I knew, I said, until they get this stuff taken care of, this racism within the Republican Party taken care of, I'm out. I'm not messing with them at all. I'm not going to no meetings. I'm not doing anything. And I hope every last one of their candidates lose. I said that to them, and I'm acting. And I even came in here and I said, I hope Amy Acton beats Ramaswamy. I said that on the very last episode. So you guys can keep beating me up for what okay, this is a prime example. You guys got Trump deranged syndrome. Y'all keep talking about Trump. Instead of going past Trump, because he will not be president too much longer, and getting past him and see what's next. Y'all keep talking about Donald Trump. I'm like, okay, I voted for who I voted for, and I'll stand on that vote. But going forward, I'm not going to take the Republican off my name, because I'm fighting against MAGA just like y'all fighting against MAGA. And I believe in my party. I believe my party is fractured.
Tarris, I'm going to stick up for you. Can I interrupt? Can I stick up for Tarris?
Yes, let's stick up for Tarris, please. Yes, go ahead.
Now, you guys, is this?
I feel like sticking up for Tarris too now. Go ahead.
This is being recorded though, so Tarris will have a memorial of it or a memento or something, right? All right. I think actually it's a little unfair to Tarris, because he is the closest we have on this podcast to a MAGA or a Trump supporter. He says he's not MAGA, but he voted for Trump, blah, blah. But I think it's a little unfair. And I've said this before privately. I'm going to say it now. We need to have some true MAGA people on this podcast.
Agreed.
Because it's a little unfair for us to constantly dump on Tarris for his poor decision in the last election. But on my podcast so far, I've had Pete Bronson, who's a Trump fanatic. I've had Dusty Rhodes, who's a Trump fanatic. They're out there, guys. So let's make an effort to get some of them on the show.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100% on that. I agree completely with you, Phil. But I think Phil has a point there. He actually has a point. I want to say that I'm feeling tender and sympathetic toward Tarris, because he's taking all the arrows today. And
today we all take the air. Hey, look, Nathan, I'm not going to let you do that.
Phil makes an excellent point. He's right. We do need to get more MAGA folks on. It's something that we're aware
y'all
of.
Keep labeling me as MAGA, man. I ain't even MAGA.
The closest thing to MAGA. But I want to hear from Steve, who has the best poker face that I've seen. He's been stone-faced and stoic through all of this. What do you think, Steve? Do you think that Michelle Obama would win in a presidential election in today's environment?
Well, I wasn't being stone-faced. I was just taking it all in. I mean, this is what they used to call good radio. But I also, what I was just sitting here thinking about is just kind of in regards to Michelle Obama, why people are looking to her now. I mean, first, we know factually that she's really not interested. If you've read her book or interviews, she doesn't like politics. She just doesn't. I mean, she's very good at it. She's a great public speaker, but by all accounts, she doesn't have that. But despite her saying that over and over, people keep coming to her and saying, we'd like you to serve in this role. And I think it is because there is a nostalgia for those Obama years among most people, because I do think it was the last time in the country we actually had a consensus around our leadership. Neither one of those elections in 2008 or 2012 were particularly close. The government ran, whether you agreed with his policies or not. It was a stable government. We were respected around the world. They were winding up the two wars that I was in the military still during the first Obama administration that we all agree were mistakes. The country, was united. Generally, there's still a lot of dissent, still a lot of reaction, but it was a very different kind of politics then. And I think that's what we all are looking back to. And that's why I think that Michelle Obama is a callback to that. That's why people are looking to her. So I'm less interested in whether she'll do it or not. I'm convinced. I take her at her word. She doesn't want to be in politics. But I do think it's very interesting that we're looking back at a time when we weren't having discussions like this, really. Like, we didn't talk to each other this way. And I'm not pointing fingers one way or the other. I catch myself doing it too. We got caught up in it, frankly, in this campaign more than we should have. With the negative back and forth. It's a different country now. And I don't blame that all on Donald Trump or his supporters. It's something that has been kind of a collective breakdown across the board, just in terms of civility and what have you. But no, I look back at Michelle Obama, I look back at those years, and I think, well, let's put it this way. I have a 23-year-old daughter, and she was born in 2001. Obama was the president, and Michelle Obama was the first lady during most of her education years, or those key 8 years where she was in school. And that is, she looks back on those as kind of calm, stable, better times. And again, she's not into the nuances of the policy or whatever, but it was a time when the country was running better and was less divided. And I do hope that there's a time when we get on the other side of this Trump stuff and the forces that are behind Trump and the populist forces that are there, that we can get to someday that there is a consensus again, and we can get back to talking about like potholes and police funding and this really boring local stuff that I still find pretty interesting.
Yeah, but do you think she would win, Steve?
In this time and phrase, I do. You know what? I don't know, and I do think that if she, if she ran, it could stitch that Obama coalition together again. Absolutely, but I don't know that there's any magic to it being her. I just think, I think we're all, one good candidate away from this. I will say this: I think part of the appeal to her is that she's if she's of the White House, affiliated with that movement, but she is not a governor. She's not a Gavin Newsom. She's not someone like, or even an Andy Bashir, who's had to take all these positions over the years. It's not lost on me that Trump's right. Trump never held elected office before. I think he's really one of the few, if not the only president ever to have never held any elected office. So the idea of someone coming in that we know who they generally are, but who hasn't had to take all these really tough positions over the years, I think there's an appeal to that. And I don't think we're done with that in our politics. I could see another person kind of rising on the national level who really hasn't been actively involved in political office again. So I don't know that it's her. I don't know that she's a woman or not. I really do think, I think that all is overstated. I think if you look around the world, we're one of the few, Western countries that hasn't had a female prime minister or president or leader. I do think that we're ready for that. I just don't think the person and the moment have met yet. So could she win? I mean, I don't know. I'm not, but could someone very much like her win? Absolutely.
Yeah. Here's what I think. I think we forget how popular the Obamas were and still are. And half of politics as much today is more about popularity than it is about policy. I think Donald Trump is a perfect example of that. He is a cult of personality. Donald Trump did not win. If you think Donald Trump won because of his idealism or his beliefs or anything like that, he played to a cynical grievance line, and his popularity that he had built on TV as this successful businessman. If you remember, that carried him as much through that first campaign as anything. Is like people bought into this notion that he was a successful businessman. And then when it comes to government, there seems to be this prevailing thought among people that if you're successful in business and you know how to run a business, then you can run America like a business, right? Like that always plays. And people who come from the private sector in the government always play that card. And the reason why they play it is because it works, and it worked in Donald Trump's favor. But Michelle Obama is
but he was a flop in the private sector, just to clarify.
But it doesn't matter. He painted that picture.
I know
The Apprentice painted that picture of the opposite, which again is all that matters. I mean, Michelle Obama is an incredibly loved and popular figure. And then you got Barack. You get a chance to put him back out on the scene as well, with his swag and his cool and everything that he brought with him, with an opportunity to reintroduce him. I just don't see that I don't see that as a losing formula. It's better than anything that the Democrats currently have out there. You can say Gavin Newsom and whatever. Michelle Obama is 10 times better than that in terms of what she would bring to the table, and that coalition that she would gin up once again. I think, to Steve's point, I don't think she'll do it. I don't think she'll do it because she's not interested in the politics. But I still say to this day, she's the best candidate the Democrats have.
You make a very compelling argument, very compelling. I was 100% like, nah, she couldn't do it. And I'm now more toward the center on that. But I think that you're underestimating sexism. I think you're underestimating it. And, everything in the rear view, nostalgia always looks good. And I think you're underestimating the sexism inside our own communities of color. There's in the Latino and Hispanic community, there is a huge bridge when it comes to sexism that she would have to overcome. So I like the idea of it. I love the fact that you and Tarris feel that way. I love that. And I hear everything you're saying, but man, there's a real nastiness out there right now. And
so wait a minute, Nathan.
Real anti-womanness out there right now.
Let's still remember Kamala Harris lost in the Electoral College badly. But let's just face it, that it was only a handful of votes in a lot of swing states. Like, we forget, even with all the sexism and racism and stuff that y'all talk about, she still barely lost when you look at the votes. You don't think that Michelle Obama could gin up the gap in the votes that Kamala Harris narrowly lost these swing states? Absolutely.
I would like to believe so.
Let me just jump on what Kevin said without being interrupted, Phil. Michelle Obama made a very good comment about her hair. She was like, and that was so profound because she was speaking. She was like, y'all are complaining about how we straighten our hair to be more European looking. And you're talking about how I would wear my hair, and then it prevents Black women from swimming and from doing other activities. And she spoke truth to that. So that would open up the door for the racism talk. So people would be like, oh, we didn't even know that would be existed. So she would be able to speak truth to power. So these people who are non-assuming or are sympathetic racists or covert racists, you'd be able to put it right in their face and say, are you really sexist? Are you really racist? Are you really against voting for a Black woman? So I really think that's why I believe that she would have an advantage in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, she was beloved by some. Not all.
I don't get the whole hair thing, but I'm in no position to make any comments on that.
Thank you, Phil. Because Phil, thank you. Because if that would be my point, because if a white man would stand up and tell Michelle Obama how she should feel about how she's doing her hair, that would be a problem. So that's what I'm saying. She's able to speak.
I'm in no position to be criticizing anyone's hair.
Exactly, but MAGA would. MAGA would be like, oh, here's a picture of her looking like an ape or this or this or that. And
just like they did before.
She would be able to speak truth to the people in MAGA in the Republican racist party.
Can I say this? What we need a woman in that position because men have destroyed this country and this world. We need that touch. But I think to the point that she made, there's a lot of people that like the idea of it until they actually see it. It's just like an intelligent Black man. You love an intelligent Black man until he open his mouth and criticize you and disagree with you. Then all of a sudden you don't like it so much. It's the same thing with a woman with leadership skills in the minds of too many people. But
I mean, I would hope she would win. I'm not so sure because I think sexism and racism plays a big part. And then I'm kind of confused because I think Tarris, exactly what you're saying would work for work for Michelle Obama is exactly what you said didn't work for Vice President Harris, because I think that when people start talking about where you're from, it really shouldn't matter. It should matter about the ability to do the job. and to pull the right people together. And really, when you think through that, you shouldn't care what happens with our hair. You shouldn't care whether I am really African descent or not, or whether Obama was from, like, none of that should matter to me, and especially from a Black man. So I don't know what would happen. I don't think Michelle Obama, I don't think she's going to run at all. But I'm also not sure how we'll show up as people for any of them. And I try to keep remembering that it was a close race. When it comes to the vice president, it was a close race. But I think even women, white women, had a problem with voting for a Black woman to become, whether you think she was Black or not, a woman of color to become the first woman president. I think it was a lot of.
But historically, that's been true. White women, 54% of white women have voted Republican, period. This is even before Kamala Harris. If you look at the trends, white women have never been on the side of Democrats. That's just true. They vote for, and there have been a lot of studies that have done about sort of this patriarchy that white women, more than any other culture, buy into the misogyny and the paternalistic nature of America and what it is, primarily because of how they've been conditioned. And there's some great studies and documentaries that are out there that I would encourage you all to, and maybe I'll go back in the chat later and add some links to some different things that people have done. And so this is not anything in particular that was particular to Kamala Harris or would even be particular to Michelle Obama. Just overwhelmingly, the majority of white women vote Republican, and that's been history, and that's not likely to change.
But not when you're voting against your own rights, because
they do, Alandes.
I know, but it was in a very big way for this election. For this election, you knew you were going for someone who not only didn't care about us as Black women, but didn't care about you as a woman. And the people that he had surrounded himself with, and still does, actually showed that in a big way. So I'm saying it was even deeper than that, if you ask me, because I think the candidate actually should have grabbed some more of those women over to this side, regardless of color.
Hillary Clinton didn't do it.
I'm gonna look at what you. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna look at what you sent, but you understand how I'm looking at it a little different for the fact of who was running.
Yeah, I get it. I get the perspective that you're coming from, but I'm just simply saying that the data shows that what white women did with Kamala Harris is consistent with what they've always done. They've always voted against their interests in favor of the Republican candidates that don't support their interests. That's not anything new. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we can feel how we want to feel about it. I'm not saying that those aren't factors, but white women have traditionally, they've not wavered. They haven't changed. They've never been on the side of Democrats and Democratic candidates, male, female, Black, white, whatever. They didn't show up for Kamala. They didn't show up for Hillary Clinton. They didn't show up for Obama, right? That's just not what they do, because they've been conditioned to buy into this system that acts against their interests, just like certain people of certain income levels vote against their interests, just like the conversation we had here today about Tarris, Black people who vote against their interests. It's just at a higher percentage for white women than it is in some of these other demographics.
I think what you're saying about the data holds true to my recollection of it. And something tells me that if you ask white women, they wouldn't say that they're voting against their interests. They would say they are voting in their interests. So, but I get what you're saying, though. But before we roll out, Steve, real quick. So we're going to be reaching out to the gubernatorial candidates over the next few months, maybe into January of 2026. You got Vivek Ramaswamy and Amy Acton. What do you think about the gubernatorial candidates as they are right now, Steve? Who are you leaning toward?
It's a tough one. I'll tell you, I've met both of them over the years, in different, way before either one of them were involved in politics, or certainly in statewide politics. And I think that is going to be a much tougher race, and a really harder one to call than a lot of people think right now. I mean, when I first saw it shaping up, I thought that Amy Acton, because of the kind of COVID backlash, would have absolutely no chance in Ohio. But she's coming on strong fundraising wise, and she's really out there working. And I keep hearing rumblings from my friends in the Republican world that there's a lot of pushback very quietly against Ramaswamy for being Hindu. I mean, he's not Christian. And that's very much out there. And that's something that you're not hearing a lot of in
Thank
like
you,
the
Steve.
mainstream circles. But I'm sorry, that's Tarris, that's just the truth.
I know it's the truth. I've been when I say that on these programming, they tell me all they say they don't believe me. When
No,
I
we
say,
agree
I've been
with
saying,
you.
but I'm
We
saying
agree with you. Kevin said made the same point.
Divide in the Republican Party. There's MAGA and there's Republicans. And thank you for.
No, Kevin made the same point. He was
look,
the first person to make the point on the show, and I mean, it made sense to me. I understand it. But what I asked you, Steve, because you're the head of the Charter Right Party, would the Charter Right Party be making endorsements in the gubernatorial election, and/or who do you think, as you stand here right now, as you sit here right now, would be best for the future of Ohio?
Well, right now, I don't think I'm not enthused about either one of them, frankly. I mean, typically the Charter Party stays out of these state races, and that's probably, frankly, one of the reasons I don't think it worked out so well for us. I mean, we have always had a mix of Republicans and Democrats in leadership. It tends to be more Democrats than not, and what I consider to be true independents. So, in order to kind of keep the peace among our ranks, we have almost never gotten involved in the federal or state races. I mean, our focus is on our charter of the Charter Party, 100% local. But right now, I mean, just as me personally, I'm not enthused about either choice. I think we're going to have other choices. I keep hearing that Tim Ryan is going to get in the race on the Democratic side. I know there was a lot of movement around Jim Trussell as a Republican for a moment, but I think he's finally stepped back. And David Yost, who I knew very well and really liked, has already stepped out of the race for Ramaswamy. So I think you're going to see at least one more, maybe two more Democrats get in. I don't think the field is settled, but I do think Ramaswamy will end up being the Republican nominee. And a lot of people he's going to have a lot of money. He's going to have a lot of support, but a lot of people really aren't sold on him. And I think he's going to have a bit of a grassroots problem just because of who he is.
Hey, I know we're about to jump off, all of us. Can I just throw one thing in? Because my friend Iris Rowley just asked a question in the comments and directed at me. And I think the question was something like, how much money is Trump making, meaning personally? And the answer is he is making billions of dollars off this presidency. The level of corruption in this presidency, it dwarfs anything. It dwarfs Teapot Dome. Anything. Do you realize that his company, at the same time that he has been brokering deals with Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, his company has massive developments with these countries, and it's all open. I mean, it's not like, to his credit, it's not really even that hidden. These countries are pouring billions of dollars into world liberty, his company, and basically it's money to pay for like a meme. It's money that it's just a bribe. That's all it is a bribe. Right now, as we speak, Mohammed bin Salman, the effective ruler of Saudi Arabia, is in the White House, okay, and they're cutting a deal where they're going to give him all kinds of weapons and all kinds of chips and everything. And at the same time, this guy, not just somebody else, this guy himself is cutting a major deal with the Trump organization. Now, I hate to say this, but I do not see any excuse for any American who has any interest in the future of this country to not be informed about this and not be offended and angry about it. And the fact that this is happening with relatively little uproar, it doesn't speak highly for our country.
One last thing. I'm just reading that the Epstein files overwhelmingly have passed. So now this is going to force the release of the Epstein files. Within the last, I'd say, 36 hours, 3-4 days, Donald Trump has switched. Initially, he seemed to be, trying to stop the release of it. And then he flipped to, hey, go ahead and release it.
The release isn't going to matter. I'll tell you why.
Okay,
because
tell us why.
Pam, I'll tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah, Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi, well, first of all, she's so dishonest. I wouldn't be surprised if she just kept stuff. But I'll guarantee you that, you remember she had the FBI go through and pick out every reference to Trump in there. I will guarantee you that if those files are turned over, anything involving Trump will be held back as classified, okay? or they'll redact everything involving Trump and claim it has to do with again, protecting victims or something.
National safety.
So as much as encouraged as I am to see a few people like Marjorie Green and Massey and others speak out, I just don't see any way the real files are going to come to the light of day.
Yeah,
And
but
this is what makes-
he's calling for the investigation to Bill Clinton, and that could actually close the files.
That keeps the files. Another excuse to keep them given the files. Exactly.
So
it's a cover up.
I think, I'm not sure that it's going to really see the light of day, and that's the reason he's doing that. But can I say this really quick, Tarris? I don't really know you, but I do think in this whole conversation, what you said is you wouldn't vote for Trump again, or you kind of shouldn't have voted. I think that's what I heard, and if so, I hope that's true.
The point is, there's two things going on in the Republican Party right now. There's MAGA and America First. I don't agree with either of them. I'm like standing like third party in the. So I'm just saying that. So if you just kind of research MAGA and America First. So you got the Thomas Masseys and the Marjorie Taylor Greens over there on America. So we're fractured. And the second thing I want to say just to the panel before we go, BET was purchased by the Ellison brothers or the Ellison family. So they're big J.D. Vance's peoples. So we have to watch their packaging moving forward. If they're purchasing BET and they start, they could try to change the connotation of how we maybe feel about J.D. Vance if we allow them to control our packaging. So that's just two things that I want to put out there before that we get off here. Be on the lookout for BET, which is purchased by the Ellisons, and also that there's fracture in the Republican Party. There's MAGA, who is racist. They're horrible people, horrible. But they hijacked the Republican Party, and then there's America First, and they're not no better. But it's fractured right now. So I just want to make those two things a leading comment.
So you wouldn't have voted for him if you knew what you know now. It sounds like.
If it would, see, you put words in my mouth.
I think that's what you were saying.
I would say if it was Kamala Harris, I voted against Kamala Harris, and I usually vote I usually vote third party. I hadn't voted for a Democrat or a Republican in, let's say, 8 elections. But this time, since they disrespected my sister, my blood sisters and my blood family with this stuff, I made a statement that I'm willing to live with. I'm living with it. So I'll take all the backlash for it. And if we ever get deeper into it, we can get deeper into it one day, you'd understand. But on the surface, I'll take the darts.
So here's what I think about the Epstein situation. This is why it doesn't make sense to me, is because if this is the track that you were going to go down, you could have went down that track from the beginning, right? If you're going to have Pam Bondi redact and why not just do that? Why not just do that from the beginning? Why go through all of this?
It's more work when there's 1,000+ references. It's kind of a lot of work, and a lot of people are going to accuse them of doing that. It was easier for Trump just to have them never come out. I think that's the answer. And he may be putting, just one sec, he may it's interesting. I think you were about to say this, Kevin. Trump could release them right now. There's no question about that. And I'm just wondering if he's telling Thune and the guys in the Senate, hey guys, let's vote against this quietly. But we'll see.
I guess at the end of the day, and I said this in the beginning when it first came out, that my expectation was never that if there was anything in there about Trump that it would ever get out and that it would see the light of day, whether that was him concealing it or if they released it, that they wouldn't make sure that there were things in there. That's why I was skeptical about the way that they were talking earlier. Like you don't think that he and his people have known all along that what was in there, and if there was stuff in there about him, that they were ever going to allow that to see the light of day. I guess what I'm just saying is that the dog and pony show for the last few months makes no sense to arrive at the same spot that we're all saying that they're at now, that he's going to redact files or not let things. He could have done that from the jump without having to go through all of this, the theatrics of the vote and all of this kind of stuff. This is stuff that Trump, I expected him to do in the beginning. And I'm just sitting here wondering to myself, like, why all of the months of theatricality to arrive at a point that I expected him to be at from the beginning. I don't know. Maybe it needed to, maybe for the political theater and other reasons that escaped me, it was necessary for him to do this over the last few months. But where I said and where I expected that we would be at, that whatever got released, if there was information in there about him, that it was never going to see the light of day, that his people were going to make sure that didn't come out. And frankly, I think he made himself look worse by not just doing that in the beginning and going through all of this months of denial, because it looks stupid now. It's like, well, why were you trying to get people on Capitol Hill to not vote for the release, and you're working out these deals with Ghislaine Maxwell to only turn around and say, well, hey, let's release the files now. I don't have anything to hide. Well, if you didn't have anything to hide, you knew that months ago. Why not just take that position if all you were going to do was block it anyway? It just seemed like an incredible waste of time. And
well,
well, Kevin, for whatever reason he did whatever he did, now no one will have any faith that they're really seeing the true files. And it's going to be one of these things. The Epstein files are going to be one of these things like the Warren Commission report and all these, weird things, things that we have in history where we don't have any real confidence in it. And it's always going to be a question mark. And there's always going to be conspiracy theories about it now, in my view. So I don't think there's anything that anyone can do to fix it at this point. It's always going to be a cloud over Trump. I mean, one of many. It's always going to be a cloud over everyone that got on one of those planes as to who knew what, when, and where, and why the files were delayed so much, whether they were redacted. I mean, and it's just, the sad thing is, it's just one of those many, many things that undermines our general confidence in our government, whether it be local, state, wherever it is. It's just that sense you're being played with. You're not really getting at the truth. There's no one just being really straight with people. So it's to me, the Epstein files are now part of a much bigger narrative about just how we can't trust anything.
Can I say one thing about the Epstein files too? Like the MAGA versus the America First is going to happen in May in the primaries, and that's why Trump is okay with the Epstein files, because I don't care about the Epstein files. This is so stupid. But he doesn't care about them now because it's affecting him in the polls. It's affecting his candidates in the polls, because you see the MAGA movement against America First. America First is like, release it, release it, release it. And they're getting momentum, a lot of momentum against MAGA and Trump, because Trump's candidates are getting beat. They're getting dog walked in. And so he has to release it to try to counteract that. That's what I'm saying. That's why the MAGA movement versus the America First movement, that's why I believe he released. But these
here's what, to Steve's point, I think that was always the case because of who was at the head of it, Steve. Like, to me, all of the past few months don't make any difference, at least in my mind. There's no discernible change over the last 6 months from what I thought to what I think now. I never thought that you were ever going, because of Donald Trump, there was never any guarantee that you were ever going to believe whatever they released, because of who he is and how he has effectively dismantled every American's belief in the system because of who he is, whether you're on his side and he's convinced you that you can't trust it, or you're against him because you know he's a liar and a shyster and a con man. Nobody believes anything that comes out of this administration or this government. And the fact that what we've gone through for the last few months doesn't change that. I would have been as skeptical if he'd released it, 4, 5, 6 months ago as I am today, because I don't trust him or his administration that they were ever going to release the truth, specifically if there were details in there about him. The only thing that would have stunned me is the opposite. I would have believed that if they would have released something and there actually would have been something in there, because that would have just run so counter to what you expected.
Right.
Of anyone with integrity in his administration. That's the only way that you would have believed it. And then he would have found some way to throw his people under the bus and say that they're against him, right?
I hear what you're saying, Kevin. I hear what you're saying, but what I will say, and Tarris, maybe you can back me up on this, is that you're wrong in the sense of people believing him. There are millions of people that believe what this man says. Yes. And if this man says that he has nothing to do with Epstein, there are millions of people that vote and will continue to support him that believe every word that came out of his mouth, just like there's people that believe that January 6th was an inside job to make him look bad and make MAGA and Republicans look bad. I mean, there are millions of people that believe this man, and we cannot discount them.
No, but I will say this, though. Epstein is bigger than him. And the fact that the only one in jail is a woman. That's the only person right now who's in jail about what happened. Besides Epstein killing himself, and it was bigger than just Trump. Like, it was a lot. So that's what we need to be discouraged about, is the fact that no one else is in jail. But I don't think anyone believes that January 6th was not orchestrated by Trump.
Oh, there are plenty of people that believe that Trump had nothing to do with it.
Trust me.
Millions.
Plenty of people that believe
Millions.
They got Cash Patel saying that the FBI they found evidence saying that there was FBI plants there and Antifa there and all these different people. They've been playing.
I know what people say.
None of that. They've never produced any shred of evidence on that.
They don't have to.
This is what.
See,
this is
I'm
what
just.
they-
I'm the messenger. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I'm just the messenger. She's like, you don't believe that there's people that believe that. Yes, I hear
Well,
this
Steve was
in the
saying
echo
it too.
because I'm outside.
Nobody believed
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Nobody believed it when it happened. And this is what I try to encourage everybody to do. Go back and watch that footage and put yourself in the position that you were on January 6, 2021, when that happened, right? Everybody believed it for what it was.
Not everybody.
Yes, Nathan, I'm telling you, because all you got to do is look at the words that even people right now who have reversed their position, Lindsey Graham, I'm done with Trump, this is it, blah, blah, blah. There are people who I know who voted for Trump in this last election who told me that after January 6th, they could never support him. They were glad he was done. I'm telling you, go back and listen to the chorus. There were very few people who didn't see January 6th for what it was on that day and in the subsequent days afterwards. What happened is you had a network of Fox News and a bunch of Trump sycophants who started going on this narrative changing mission to try to create all these falsities that Tarris is just now talking about, to try to absolve Donald Trump of culpability in January 6th and make him viable to be another candidate to run again.
This is true.
And that's all this has been, is an effort to rewrite history. And people
it's been
drank
successful.
Kool-Aid.
I was saying it sarcastically, just so you know. What I was saying, no one really believes that's not the truth. When you think about what happened to the vice president during that time when he didn't, everyone knows that was the truth.
Right.
So because they pretend like they don't, I was being actually sarcastic. Like, you really can't not believe.
There are people out there that, and I think everything you said is right, Kevin, but I'm going to stand on this. There are people out there that from the beginning, as soon as Fox News or whatever said it was a false flag, it was an FBI, it was out there, they believed it from the beginning. If you are rooted in what you believe in, a couple news headlines are not going to change you. And if you're changed, you ain't really believe it. So they believed that it was an inside job because they wanted to believe it was an inside
there you
job.
go. You're exactly right.
They have a conspiratorial nature. And when somebody throws a conspiracy out there that feels or touches them in a way that rings true in any kind of way, they roll with it. So I'm just saying, there are millions of people that believe that Trump is a hero and that he was actually trying to stop Epstein and working with the FBI, and that, maybe he was there, but he wasn't doing anything wrong. And they're going to take that to their grave. I mean, that's just what they believe. So,
and Nathan, to that point, I'm sorry, to that point, and that's one of the reasons why I was just thinking about why I think people look back on the Obama years as like the last normal years. We had disputes on policy during the Obama years, but we were all working off the same set of agreed facts. Okay, we fought about Obamacare, but you were talking about the numbers and the policy. There were arguments about whether to pull out of Iraq and Afghanistan, but those were, there were facts we were dealing with. Now, January 6th is somehow a controverted fact that we're arguing about whether the people were pardoned and what happened. Epstein is now up in the air. Like, we don't have any agreement, about just basic facts anymore. It feels like someone could just say whatever and make up whatever they want to make up. And I think that's why these things feel so weird. And that's why we look back on that really being the last era of stuff where we could actually have debates about things where we understood what we were talking about. And now it's all, we can now have opinions about facts. You know, the old joke was if you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. Now you're entitled to your own facts.
Yeah,
And,
well, alternative facts. Who coined that phrase? That's what was her name? Kellyanne Conway, who famously coined that. Well, we've got our alternative facts. What is that? Yep. Look, you elected people. This country twice has elected a man who has told somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 to 50,000. I think they quit keeping track because every time the man opens his mouth, he tells an untruth, and he has normalized the fact that you can lie and get away with it. And then he's supported by an entire network in Fox News that has no ethical considerations because they amplify that stuff knowingly. They've been found guilty of putting known liars, Rudy Giuliani and all of these people who they knew were lying about the 2020 election results, and they put them on there and they gave them that platform without any kind of ethical considerations. And they convinced an entire portion of this nation that lies were the truth. And so this is what you get when it starts at the top, and it starts with a guy who has no regard for truth and a network that props him up and that propagates those falsities. And that is why we can't have an agreed upon set facts. He's vilified the mainstream media to the point that they're questioned, they're questioned incessantly, by folks, which is fine. I mean, that's always a part of the process. Right. But at least, you're talking about organizations that do try to adhere to a set of standards and facts and don't always get it right, but do try to present the facts as it is, and let folks sort it out. They're the villains now. Trump has, believe him over these trusted sources. And so now we're in a situation where people don't know what to believe. They don't know where they turn for truth. And so what you wind up having is people who make these gut and emotional decisions that oftentimes aren't based on good, solid data and information, but how they feel and to Nathan's point, what they want to believe, what confirms biases that they already have. And that's the toxic stew we got right now in our politics.
That's the algorithm, Kevin. People can, can look at their Twitter feeds and their Facebook feeds, and over time, the algorithm's spitting back stuff at them that they know it wants. It's like you end up in your own little personal echo chamber. Yeah.
And that's where Mike comes in. Yeah. And that's where Mike comes in to challenge those echo chambers and the clash of ideas and divergent points of view. Steve, thank you so much for your time. Don't be a stranger, man. I'm gonna put you on our email list, and if you're available, let us know.
This has been a lot of fun. It's great sorry, I didn't want to listen to this. Tarris, hang in there, buddy. Oh
man, it's not always this bad. It's not. I think Miss Powell had to get to know me a little bit better because I've been going through this for about a good year now, and I've been hanging on my own. But I always say, Steve, and I'll say this to you, Miss Powell, anytime anybody wants to match fruits with me, I'm a big results person. Anybody wants to match fruits, production.
That's what we're gonna do.
Production fruits. And I'm not saying that yours is going to be better than mine, or mine's going to be better. I'm not saying mine's going to be better than yours, but I'm going to say we're going to see prosperous fruit from my end at all times.
Okay. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure meeting you as well.
And you can call me Alandes.
Alandes, okay.
Yeah, because I don't want you calling me Miss, because when I say something else, I want to feel like we're on a personal basis.
Okay. Yeah, and I cuss like you, so I can't wait till we can talk to each other.
And Steve, don't feel bad for Tarris. Look, on this podcast, on any given show, Look, there have been shows where I've been raked over the coals on this podcast. That's why I wasn't gonna let Nathan have that. Like, we're not gonna have a pity party for Tarris today because he was on the hot seat and the spotlight was on him.
Right.
We've all been on the coals on this podcast on an issue that we were in the minority on, and you gotta take it. That's part of what hot mic is. You gotta stay. And I give Tarris credit. I'll say this much about Tarris. As much as you may disagree with his thought process, Tarris stands his ground. He pretty much is consistent on what he says, even if we don't agree with it, even if we don't understand it. And I can at least respect that, right? Is if you have a conviction of your belief on something, even if I don't agree with it, share it or understand it, I can at least respect the dialogue and say, brother, you're wrong. I don't agree with you. I don't think, is there. But if that's where you at, that's where you at.
I'm going to say he stands in mud. And then I'm going to also say someone should share their, I think you were talking about your therapist. I think you should share the name with him.
With me?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that's
how Steve,
Alandes, I'm sitting right here. I'm talking about fruit, right? Prosperous fruit. I'm sitting right here in a waiting room of my wife's therapy office, licensed therapy office, her own private practice. I'm looking at her door right there. I'm sitting in my wife's therapy office that we have in our building, in our own. We'll talk.
Alandes,
She said I need a therapist. Man, come in when these darts y'all throwing at me. They don't even hurt me. They don't even hurt me. I'm like, Harlem, shake them over here. Harlem, shake them.
Okay, Alandes, I could share the name of my therapist I've been visiting with since the election. His name is Jack Daniels. You might have heard of Jack Daniels.
I think he has enough of that.
Yeah. He's easy to find.
Easy to find, but hard.
He has many clients, Steve, too. I mean,
too many clients.
With a little ice. Hey, I've got to jump off. I'm late for a work thing. As I like to say, I have to engage in capitalism so I can fund my daughter's study of communism at a college. So I got to get back to work.
All right.
So,
hey, Steve, we're ending anyway. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
Hey, you all take care. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah, great time.
Take care.
And to Phil Heimlich, appreciate you, bro. He had to get off early. Alandes, I'm glad you're here with us. Thank you. I'll be reaching out next week. Tarris, appreciate you, man. Kevin, you already know, bro, goes without saying. To the audience, thank you for being here. We're planning to be back on Friday at 1 p.m. So please join us and find out who's on the crew and what we're talking about. Until then, have a great Tuesday and a great week. Take it easy.